movement. So I would like to welcome and say hello, CW Chanter.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for so much for having me. Honestly.
So is there anything particular about maybe your bio you want to tell people who may not be familiar with you? Just give us a little bit of a rundown. Who are you? What are you about?
Basically, look. Basically, what I'm about is this: is that I'm just like you. I mean, I've been a part of this community. We start off as members of this community. We find information. We tune on. We turn on. We get new information and new vibes. We start to realize and deconstruct a little bit about the way that things actually work, and then we get involved. And that's basically, I'm just a guy that got involved. I'm CW Chanter. I'm a guy just like you or maybe many of the people in the audience who picked up on things and explored new information and new ideas. That's really what I basically say, is that, you know, the great thing about this new world that we live in, this the connected internet world, is you don't have to be a passive observer anymore. You know, you can get involved in the conversation. You can get involved in the work, and that's all I basically tried to do. Is, and be totally honest, is that it's not all happiness and sunshine. There's some problems in the alternative media that I assess. Some things that over years of being a YouTube connoisseur and watcher, a truther, if you will, you know, interested in these conspiracy theories and these new ideas and these new thoughts. There were some fundamental questions that I saw that weren't being asked, and some that I thought needed to be explored. And that's the nature of getting involved, is that you see a problem, you try and solve a problem. I saw a problem in the alternative community, the alternative media, if you will, that there were certain things that weren't going questioned. There were certain ideas that were just passing through. There were certain paradigms that were being implemented and maintained that I thought needed to be shaked up and questioned. Did what we can in this liberating day and age, is that I turned on my webcam, I started to film, and I started to make my own voice be heard out there and throw it out there. And that's the long and the short of it. I you know what I mean? I am who I am, and ideas and thoughts and research out there. And then it comes to the viewer to then take that ball, pick it up, and say, what about what this guy is saying? Can I relate to? This guy is saying, do I think it's totally full of crap? What, you know? And then you go with it and participates. That's really what it is. This new modern paradigm is a participation paradigm. There's no sitting on the top. You get involved. You use the information, and there's a beauty in there, but there's also duties and obligations involved in there that I think people need to really take on board. There's a lot of people in the alternative community that are passing off an innuendo as research and authority.
No doubt.
We need to learn how to do that. We need to learn how to listen to people and digest information, what is fact, what is verifiable, and then what is spin and nuance and editorialization and opinion. And those things have value too. I care what people like Jordan Maxwell think, but I do want to always make sure that I remember that when I'm listening to Jordan Maxwell, I need to discern information and facts from editorial and opinion, not because someone's trying to snow me, but because we're complicated creatures, and we're dealing with very complicated. You know all the answers because you've been looking at this stuff for a year and a half, 2 years. Hey, complicated things that we're researching. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you got a lot of
no problem.
You got maybe a bandwidth problem. You got a lot of cutting in and out as you're speaking there.
Oh shoot! I apologize about that.
Yeah, I have problems with it.
Whatever I can do, let me know if there's anything that gets lost in the shuffle.
Okay, if it continues, if it doesn't want to clear itself up, sometimes these hangouts have feedback and echo issues and other minor issues when we usually get them going. If it's an issue, maybe you just want to leave the chat and come back. And in the process, I can I've got a couple of headlines here. I usually like to start the show with a few blood boilers to get the brain thinking, get the blood moving. I got a couple of headlines I just want to run over. Considering that you're so familiar with all these different alternative research or truth community subjects and topics, I imagine that you're going to have plenty of input as I run through most of these headlines, and we may open up one or two articles and examine a little further into it. So,
God willing.
Okay. All right. So if you continue to have cutout issues, then maybe you just go ahead and jump out and jump back in, and don't even sweat it.
Yeah. Please let me know. I mean, from where I'm sitting, obviously all I see is my feed, and my feed looks fine to me. Obviously, if people have feedback that there's bandwidth issues or cutting in or cutting out, obviously, please let me know. Report it to me. I'll be sure to jump out, jump back in, whatever we have to do.
Sure. Okay.
I'm familiar with this Google Hangout, so I know how it takes.
Okay. All right, cool. So I do have a couple of headlines I want to run past you guys. When we spoke with Mark from Global Agenda last week, I mentioned that it's practically every week in the news that there's somebody else going down for a sexual assault. It's a senator, it's a general, it's the police chief, it's something like that. And sure as shit, the very next day, on a Saturday after that show that we did with Global Agenda, in the news, here's another one. Let's see. It was sexual misconduct was the headline. It was a Saturday after Global Agenda. This is the actor Danny Masterson from that 70s show. I'm not sure if you guys heard of that one.
Yeah.
But it just seems to keep coming that there's absolutely no end. It's an actor. It's a aide to the president. It's a high-ranking senator. It's always it's every other day, once a week, twice a week. There's just no end. And Mark was saying that one of his quote-unquote insiders, somebody who likes to remain a little anonymous, and he's been communicating with, on the show, he actually read one of a letter or a comment from this person to him. And I think, if I remember correctly, that she said, I think it was a woman, she said that every single actor or actress is involved. Everyone without exception.
Yep.
So anybody want to throw input before I jump down? Because there's no need to open up that headline. There's a couple of headlines I just want to run through to bring to y'all attention. And if you have something to say, pipe up. All right. Keystone Pipeline will not be required to use U.S. steel.
Isn't that glorious?
U.S. steel?
Nope.
Yeah.
Apparently what the story is now, even though Trump kept saying that he was going to use American steel and get jobs and yada, yada, yada. Apparently what happened was, what they're now saying, well, they'd already contracted for the steel somewhere else, so they're going to do it that way.
Oh, sorry about that. We forgot.
Yeah. It's like, oh, jeez.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Hey,
all right, that's one. We're going to play a drinking game. Every time Chanter says, what are you going to do? Everybody takes a drink.
That's it. Every time I say, what are you going to do? It is what it is at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another one.
There's 1,003 CW Chanter drinking games.
Giving us a loony.
The only problem I have is I have nothing to drink here. I mean, I'm done with my tea, and I guess I can get some water, but
that's not going to do it.
You know what's interesting? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, listen, you can play the CW Chanter drinking game with water. You absolutely can. I mean, you're going to end up ahead of the game because you'll be well hydrated. Certainly.
Yes.
You'll certainly be the healthiest amongst us.
You're not allowed to go to the bathroom.
You're not going to have too much fun, but hey, it is what it is.
All right. Okay, so have you guys heard about the new TSA rules?
I have
More
not.
rigorous pat-down procedures described as more intimate. And you know,
Jeez.
Full release.
Just like you weren't safe enough already, right?
yeah, you got a full release.
I mean, they've caught so many terrorists. Wait a minute.
Oh, wait.
Zero.
What?
Zero since they
caught their own
started.
staff. They caught their own staff stealing iPhones and everything else under the sun.
Yes.
Hey.
Copping fields and feeling up little children, and this
is just disgusting that anybody puts up.
You know, one of the other things that bothered me about this particular story, news article, this one came across the TV, and all three of these that I read to you so far, the Keystone Pipeline, this actor Danny Masterson, this TSA thing, all three of these articles came on a Saturday morning when no one is paying much attention. It's one of those weekend news articles where they brush over it so they can at least say, "We told you so," right? But one of the things that actually bothered me about this one in particular, the TSA, they actually spent a whopping 15 seconds telling you about this story. And then they proceeded to spend several minutes on a follow-up story that involved these two kids, and there was some, I guess, a viral video spinning the fucking pizza dough, throwing it and tossing it to each other. They brushed over this TSA thing, I'm not kidding, 15 seconds, and then they proceeded to spend 4 or 5 minutes on these two kids tossing pizza dough and giggling and laughing. So it's pretty clear that the technique is, that they do it this way so they can, like I said, get away with, they can sleep at night. I don't know.
Plausible deniability.
Hey, we told you, right? It's not our fault if you weren't paying attention, but fortunately for all of you and listening, I'm one of those who pays attention, and I'm always got my notepad handy. So there it is. All right. Let's see if there's another article or two. You guys may have heard of this Vault 7 WikiLeaks dump.
Yes, WikiLeaks.
Sure.
Chanter,
all over the news.
I'm really curious to get your take on this one in particular. I'm sure most of you guys remember hearing just this past week or so that Donald Trump was on the news and crying about, Obama hacked the tower, my Trump Tower. He was listening to my phone calls, yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada.
And then I catch this video by Truth Stream Media, and they dug up an old interview from Donald Trump where he said, and I quote, "I assume when I pick up my telephone, people are listening to my conversations anyway."
Yeah.
So this is like long before he was president. This is a while ago. I don't. But, he's quoted as saying, "I assume when I pick up my telephone, people are listening." And then we have Donald Trump crying in the news, "I was hacked. Obama hacked my tower. He's listening to my shit." Just what a giant dog and pony show, right?
Absolutely.
Really? No, the script is just so stupid.
The thing is, they are allowed to record and whatnot with people and stuff like that, but they can't use it. They use it for a political advantage, right? Like they use it as a political tool, right? To smear the other side, right?
Right.
That's where the big issue really is, right? It's no one wants to be listened to, but they somehow have the right to do that when it comes to governmental agencies and stuff like that, right? But they use it to their political advantage. That's the big problem, right?
Well, the real revelations of Vault 7 are the fact that, let's face it, folks, what's basically happening is that the American people and the population of the world at large have basically been told at this point, dude, every cell phone conversation, every email, it's going into the database. And what what people need to realize is that what the U.S. government game that they're playing is basically this is, okay, there's information we gather, we're distinguishing that from information we look at. So maybe the rules of the U.S. Constitution, the interpretation of the U.S. Constitution by the U.S. Supreme Court says that we have to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to getting a warrant or looking at this information. Okay, that's all fine and well and good, and we'll pay attention to those rules. But in the meantime, on the back end, we're gathering up everything. We're just not looking at it. But, should the appropriate time come, then we'll go to the FISA court and then we'll look at it. And so basically what everybody knows is that, believe you me, Matt Zuckerberg has the webcam on his laptop covered up.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
He does.
At this point, John Podesta has the dummy plugged into his mic input on his laptop. People need to know and understand that basically the jig is up, is that data is a fungible product. It can be souped up and gathered up like a sponge, and the powers that be are doing so. So don't be shocked and surprised that everything you do online, whether it's wanking or banking, is getting recorded onto the hard drive and be guided accordingly. And be guided accordingly to the degree that you can.
Interesting choice of words there. You think you pretty much covered all the bases, wanking and banking, whether you're wanking or banking.
That's it. And I stole that line. I'll admit it. I stole that line from another researcher by the name of Dave Emery, who he doesn't do so much on the YouTubes or on the World Wide Webs. He's still on terrestrial radio. Spitfire.com is a great website. You can go to check out his uploads and his downloads. Dave Emery, an amazing researcher, is doing a lot. He used to be featured heavily on a terrestrial radio station out in New Jersey called WFMU that used to be associated with Uppsala College, but is now just an independent radio station. They used to run his stuff for years. Amazing amounts of information. Data on 9/11, data on the JFK assassination, amazing amounts of research and stuff. And through the looking glass, as it were. So if there's any value to my appearance on the station, it'll probably, a lot of it will come down to plugging other sources and other resource avenues that people can explore. And Dave Emery, Emorey, is definitely a guy to check out. You definitely want to see.
All right.
For what it's worth.
So what do you think about this concept of learned helplessness? Because with this WikiLeaks dump is really nothing new. It's really not any revelation that we didn't already know. It wasn't already out there in the public realm. In fact, there were whistleblowers quite a long time ago, many years already, talking about these new smart TVs that they can turn them on, and even though you turn it off and it looks and appears to be off, they can activate your mic.
Weeping Angel, absolutely. This is crazy stuff. So it's now the rubber has hit the road, and the reality is we've gone from speculating that this was technology that was possible or available or could be used. People made fun of Alex Jones talking about this stuff, but we have to be honest now and say that it is reality, that they've come out, especially with the Vault 7. One of the programs that came to light was this program called Weeping Angel. And they literally had something with the Samsung smart TVs. They identified them by make and model and manufacturer. And it's true. It's that you can have your smart TV, your laptop turned off, power off, right? Yeah. And unbeknownst to you, it's actually still a fully functioning data gathering information device for the NSA, who can activate your microphone, activate your webcam. What you're doing and what you're up to.
I will say this. I don't consent to being spied upon. I don't consent to being invaded in any fashion. I do not consent to this. I don't consent to the control mind system.
God bless you.
And I figure if enough of us say such things, perhaps we can make a change in this horrific BS that they beset us with.
Back to my original question, though, what do you think about this idea of this data dump in correlation with some of the other reports that have been coming out, talking about like what you just said. Your cell phone is listening, your TV is listening, your computer is listening, it's watching you, it's listening to you. There are algorithms that are picking up keywords when you're in your living room, and some people will talk about target marketing, and I've got something else to add after that. But the concept of learned helplessness, where they'll come out with these news reports, it goes viral all over the media. They tell you we've had Edward Snowden, right? And we've got all these WikiLeaks documents telling everybody this is what's going on. The NSA is spying on you. You're being listened. You're being recorded. And what are you going to do? What can you do? Literally, except, put tape over your camera, and put, like Zuckerberg, put tape over your microphone and tape over your camera. So in the minds of the people who are absorbing these news stories, for the most part, they go, yeah, we already knew that. And then they go back to work. So it's this idea of learned helplessness, that there's nothing you can do about it. Big Brother's going to be watching you. Pretty soon we're going to have fucking jumbotrons on the wall. And, you're going to have to wake up in the morning. And if you don't do your exercises, they're going to talk to you directly. Winston, I need you to pick up the pace. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
now, I want to, CW, I want to throw something at you that we'd mentioned before. Regarding WikiLeaks, right? They've always been right. They've always been, it's always been, pretty much verifiable, everything they put out. So there's no reason to think that it's fake news. Okay.
Right.
Are you in agreement with that before I go any further?
Well, so if we're talking about WikiLeaks, what we have to know and understand is that you and I sit in a position where WikiLeaks will come to us with information, and they'll say, this is the disclosure, here's the information, and here's the verification. I have faith in WikiLeaks. Having said that, I know and understand the limitations of my ability to assess WikiLeaks' honesty. The allegations by some people are that WikiLeaks is a player in the game and they're controlled and they've got their own agenda.
That was what I was getting to.
Right.
Is that, remember they had last year sometime, I can't remember when, but they were talking about Julian Assange had a dead man's switch or dead man's clock or something like that.
Right.
Switch.
Where if he were to die, information would be slowly drip fed out. Over time, more things would come out. And that's what I'm seeing right now.
No, look, my take on it is this, is that everyone has to have their individual assessment of how they evaluate the information, how they digest the information, and what they do with it. My take on WikiLeaks is that they are authentic to their purpose, that they are disclosing, for the purpose of disclosure, information that is kept secret from the common man and woman on planet Earth by the powers that be. I disagree with thinkers like Sam Harris or with certain pundits on TV like Rachel Maddow, who think that WikiLeaks is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Russian government.
No,
I believe, based on my experience with WikiLeaks, is that they are fair players. They'll hit Republican, they'll hit Democrat, they'll hit American, they will hit Russian, they will hit German, they will hit French, depending on where the information takes them and what they feel they need to disclose. So I trust to that degree. That's a personal assessment that I know that I'm making, that I don't, no one can know everything. That's the thing that people have to realize, that as human beings on planet Earth, there's only a certain amount of information that you're going to be able to take in, only a certain amount of information you're going to be able to digest correctly. And there's only going to be a certain amount of stuff that you can do with that information. So, for example, if I realize that 9/11 is an inside job, 9/11 is an inside job, okay, in a position where, with that knowledge, what can I do with it? There are certain things that I can do, and there's certain things that I can do. Can I take to YouTube? Can I take to the internet? Can I take to Facebook and spread information, explain information? Yeah, I can do that. Can I march up to the streets of Washington and make a citizen's arrest of George W. Bush or Kissinger? That's probably less likely and less realistic. right? So we find ourselves, hampered to a degree. And we also have to know and understand, if we want to have a healthy relationship with this information, that we're taking things on faith that we don't know. You know what I mean? Someone could come out with some revelation about Pizzagate, some email revelation. We take them at their word that this is the authentic email, that it hasn't been altered, it hasn't been doctored. We take them at their word that the impetus that they're putting behind it is genuine, authentic, and tested and well put, that it's truthful. We take a lot of things, and we need to be aware of that we're imperfect beings. So much in this alternative community, people realize that a terrorist act or a purported terrorist act will occur at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and by 4:15 Eastern Standard Time, there's already people on YouTube saying it's definitely a false flag, it's definitely this, it's COINTELPRO, it's a psyop, it's this, that, and the other thing. How did you get there? How did you get there in 30 minutes, baby? I'm not saying that it's an impossibility that it's COINTELPRO, psyop, or false flag.
Well, there's usually the clue.
Yeah,
Right?
There's usually the obvious things, like the crisis actors come out and they're not crying, and there's the obvious things that give it away. Or you see a cadaver again, you see them using a dummy, right?
Be careful of that
the
word.
police press conference. You got
or there's a drill.
Or a drill happened at the same time.
Brothers and sisters,
thing.
believe you me, I understand the value of that, and I understand. Believe you me, I'm not sitting up here. Believe you me, Gulf of Tonkin, the Lusitania,
right.
Yes,
right.
The
Liberty.
Believe you me, we know that false flags are a possibility. They're on an agenda, and as we say, they're on the possible menu. But what we need to know and understand is that we got to be very careful of words like obvious, because that's one of the most abused words. And believe you me, I'm just saying that there are things that we do that we do as a prophylactic and as a protection against possible problems. We wash our hands every day after we go use the restroom, not because we think that every single time we go to the restroom we've been exposed to some antigen or some germ or some virus, but we know that that's the best protocol to do it 100% of the time. Means that the one time that you do come against, streptococcus, whatever, that you or your friends or family members are protected in some way. So we got to be very careful of this word obvious, because we live in a world where if we go onto YouTube and we enter in things, there's people that are going to use the word obvious in terms of things like, it's obvious that 9/11 was a false flag attack. Okay, but you're going to also have those same people or certain similar people using that term to say it's obvious that Barack Obama is a reptilian shape-shifting alien, right? It's obvious. It's obvious that Donald Trump is as guilty and involved in pedogate, Pizzagate, whatever gate you want to call it, as Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and whomever. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
You got to be very careful of that word obvious, because it might be obvious. But what we have to do is we have to lay out our analysis in a way that we don't have to say it's obvious.
right.
We can just lay out the data and information, our points, our counterpoints, and hopefully, God willing, if we're doing our best work, it will be obvious. But the obviousness, it should be a conclusion that's arrived at by the final observer, not something that's dictated or stated by the pundit themselves, because it's very easiest to throw around the word. John Podesta is obviously involved in satanic, sadomasochistic, child abusing, pederast behavior. It's obvious. Because if you throw that term around, then they're able to point at you and say, this outrageous statement, this outrageous statement, this outrageous statement that he says is obvious is not obvious. It would be better. It would be better if we just took our time and said to the people that be and the powers that be, when we're trying to make these points, okay, you think that Pizzagate, quote unquote, is fake news. Let me tell you why I think certain things about these emails are troubling. Here's this email.
Right. Choose your language carefully.
Right.
Choose your language carefully. Be careful. And just know that what might be obvious to you might not be obvious to someone else. And if you're really trying to do work, If you're trying to be right, it's very easy. You get on YouTube, you throw on your webcam, and you get up there and you say, I think this, I think this, I think this, and I'm right. Fuck you. Right?
No,
I'm right.
never.
I'm right. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's so many people that are doing that.
Presenting ideas and sharing information and coming to your own conclusions. It's all the way you create your own thoughts.
I'm really glad you put it the way you did, because actually one of the questions I had written down was in regard to your interview with Carla St. Louis.
Okay.
And not only was I really impressed, that interview was a really good one, and I would love to speak to her, by the way. But I really something you said at the beginning of that interview, and let me see which page I had it on here. I actually wrote all this down. I really wanted to run this by you, and you just basically pretty well iterated what I'm about to allude to. In the beginning of that interview, you discussed how you said that doing this is a learning process. It's a journey, and one of the things that you learned was taking responsibility for what you say online and taking responsibility for learning how to communicate and how to keep lines of communication open. I was very, very impressed with the way you articulated that, and it resonated with me pretty deeply. And it is a learning process. Absolutely. It's a process that I'm in the process of learning. And so, when you spoke those words, it really did resonate with me a lot. And in fact, I just had an experience recently in the comment section. And in fact, I had two of them very recently. And there are some things that were, said that even though I typically tend to choose my words fairly carefully, sometimes people get under your skin and you say things and then it's not necessarily appropriate. So I really like that you had said that. And I like the way you broke down how to deal with information just a moment ago. So it goes right to that question that I had for you about that, about taking responsibility for what you say online, particularly as you were describing, throwing out words like it's obvious, I'm certain that this is that, when you're really not certain, or it's really not obvious.
Right. Or you may be certain, but what people need to realize is fallible human beings, that when you've come to a state where in your heart of hearts, you know what you know, and you know it. You know that John Podesta is guilty, right? You know that Barack Obama was X, Y, or Z. You know that 9/11 was a fault. You know it. You know it. You know it. It's obvious to you that what you need to know and understand is that you're fallible. And the things that you know or come to know and understand may be the product of authentic knowledge. You've looked at the information, you've assessed the information, you've digested the information correctly, and you've come to a correct conclusion. But I know that some of the conclusions that I've reached are obvious to me, not just because I've looked at the information, but because of my feelings, because of my perspective, because of my emotions, because of where I'm coming from, because I hate the man, right? You know what I mean? Because I think that elites are bullshit and that the power should be with the people. Everyone has prejudices, and you gotta look at your own game to understand where you're going, where you're coming from, and if you're quote unquote doing the best work, or just sitting up there doing what's called like taxi cab philosophy, right? Every guy, from the man on the street working at McDonald's to the guy working at First Union on Wall Street, everybody's got opinions and ideas. They've got knowledge and they've got information about how they think the world works. Some of those conclusions may be false, so we got to be careful. If people take a look at my channel now, they'll realize, they might understand this, come to know and understand that I've recently made decisions with my particular YouTube channel to take a lot of videos offline. There's a lot of stuff that I've been on YouTube for about 1.5 years. I've made almost 180 videos, and I took the vast majority of them offline in one fell swoop. And it was because, I had to, you have to look at the work you're doing and realize that your heart might be in the best place. You might be trying to do good work. You might be trying to be honest and undeceptive and real with people, and you still can do quote unquote bad work. So you have to assess and look at things. and when it comes to keeping the communication protocols online and open, this is the easiest way that I can describe it. When I came to YouTube, I came to YouTube with an agenda. There were things that I wanted to do and accomplish with YouTube. But as you guys, may be learning or realizing, YouTube it's an entity. It's got an energy, being connected to people. It's a particular form of social media, and it can change you. And after a while, I realized, wow, gee, I came to YouTube with an agenda, with an ideal, with an idea that I wanted to do. But here I am playing the quote unquote YouTube game. Backbiting, infighting, debates, drama, all that malarkey that can get in the way and can be so prevalent in these alternative communities real quick. Step one, you get a community that develops. Flat Earth, 9/11 truth, pick a topic. Sandy Hook, pick a topic, pick an idea. The community gets together, and then before you know it, stage two is high school, infighting, backbiting. This guy doesn't wipe his rear end. This guy doesn't have the intelligence of a shoe. Are you kidding me? Then you could say this: he's violent, he threatens people. Did you know that he's got a criminal record? He's got a military record, and that means he's inherently suspect. He doesn't have a military record, and that means he's inherently suspect. And round it can go. And so we have to be aware of the fact that there are temptations. We have information that we think is valuable, and we have ideas and opinions that we think are valuable. And therefore we say to ourselves, how do I reach a bigger audience? How do I get out there? And before you know it, you might find yourself making decisions that might get you more viewers, but at what cost?
Right.
And so for me in particular, I can tell you exactly what happened. I realized quickly on that if it bleeds, it leads. If I make a video talking about some whistleblower, some contactee, some conspiracy theorist, and I make a video that says, here's a fair and nuanced interpretation of Santos Bonacci and his concept of the flat earth, that's going to get X number of views. But if I make a video that's entitled Santos Bonacci can, eat it, and Santos Bonacci debunked, !
Right.
And I make a video where I'm yelling and screaming and cursing this guy till I'm blue in the face, oh baby, that's gonna get a couple of thousand. That'll be my most popular video out there. And then you have to assess, what's going on.
So you took your videos down. You obviously had a reassessment period, and I noticed while researching you this week, I was obviously looking at everything I could get my hands on that had your name on it, and while visiting your channel, I noticed that there was only 4 or 5 videos that were up, and throughout the week, you have, and particularly I noticed today you uploaded more, or re-uploaded, or unprivatized. So you obviously had an assessment period. What was the decision to? What was your assessment, and what was the decision to re-upload?
Well, basically went like this. The first assessment that I made was that there was a problem. That I had X amount of videos out there, some of which were good, but some of which were really, I felt, not the best work for me. They didn't help anybody. They didn't help me. They didn't help the viewer. They didn't help the community at large. They just didn't help. And so I decided to take things offline and decide to put things, back on after individual assessment. Knowing that I was going to do this video with you guys, I said to myself, geez, well, I better get some of the videos unprivatized, so that these poor guys don't have an interview with the guy.
So you did it for us.
Thank you so much.
Well, I try. I want to make sure people didn't realize that you didn't completely lose your heads. And I said, gee, they used to interview guys like Joseph P. Farrell. Now they're interviewing this guy, CW Chanter, that seems to be YouTube user number 5597355. What's the point in that? No, but going back honestly is that I did make an assessment that I want to reevaluate these videos, and I want to make sure that I looked at them a second time and made sure that the videos that went up, I thought were videos that, look, if I've got a video that's an hour long or an hour and a half long, I think it's at baseline, at baseline, I should make the assessment of whether or not I'm being honest with myself of saying that this particular video is worth an hour or an hour and a half of somebody's time. And what you realize when you do YouTube is that there does become a pressure. You do end up hearing the voices that end up saying to you, if you want your channel to grow, you have to make daily content. If you want your channel to grow, you gotta have consistent uploads. You want to talk about topical events. You want to have a catchy title. You want to have a title that attracts people. You want to have a thumbnail that attracts people. And then you start thinking about those factors, and that's when compromise can happen. Now, look, I'm not a purist. Life is complicated. You know what I mean? There's going to be pros and cons to any endeavor in any situation. You know, and there's compromises you have to make and compromises you have to contemplate. And for me personally, I came to a point where I had to say to myself, it's appropriate to make reassessments and to decide what we're going to do. And for me particularly, I had to say to myself things like, gee, just because YouTube allows you to make a 5-hour Google Hangout with people talking about this, that, and everything under the sun, doesn't necessarily mean that 5 hours of a hangout. Bottom line is that there were certain videos that I had up on my channel that I thought to myself, in all honesty, made better home movies than they made public broadcasts, right? That there were times that they were funny, they were touching, they were humorous, there were this, that, and the other thing. But did it give any value to the potential quote unquote researcher or the individual looking for information and data, or just alternative points of view about a given subject? And so when it came down to, for me, was that I just came to an assessment point where I just said to myself, it's better to take down certain videos, even if they be the most popular videos you have. If they're the shittiest videos you have, take them down. Better to have, 250 subscribers that are getting real content and real information, your best stuff, than to have 250 followers or subscribers that are just getting a person pontificating upon crap. Right. You know what I mean? And for me, I'm not the only one that has to be making those decisions. And, look, you guys had Thomas Sheridan on. I love Thomas Sheridan. I'm a subscriber. But at least 33% of the videos that he makes, I think to myself, Jesus Christ, I wish he hadn't made that video, because it doesn't help me. There's no information. It's just his opinion. And quite frankly, all I'm sitting here is sitting here going, you have an opinion. Thank you for your opinion. I have a different opinion. And now I'm just feeling consternated and upset with you, because I don't get how you think that Donald Trump is this amazing guy. Do you know what I mean? But if I had one thing to say to Thomas Sheridan, it would be like, you talking about Donald Trump is like me talking about the Troubles. Yeah. It's me talking out of turn. I'm not a black dude, right? Now, the relationship between African-American individuals in the United States of America and the police in America has got a rich and troubled history. Mm-hmm. My assessment can be based on an analysis of the facts. My assessment can be based on the analysis of my life experience, but my opinion is absolutely 100% non-informed about what it's like to be an African American on the streets of Chicago or Detroit or Jersey City or pick a town. Right. Look, I mean, I'm not saying that all cops are bad. I'm not saying that all brothers are good. I'm saying that it's complicated, and it's very complicated. And to have a guy across the sea talk about it's Donald Trump's been elected, and all of a sudden things feel safer. Thomas Sheridan has said that. He said that on the record.
Oh, really? I hadn't.
And I'm sitting there going, where did you get that? You know what I mean? I mean, you can have your own opinions about Donald Trump, but for God's sakes, brother, just because you're an expert in painting and just because you're an expert in the occult doesn't mean you're an expert in U.S. politics. And I had to say that for myself. Styx Hexenhammer, there's Sargon of Akkad. There's so many people, YouTube content creators, that I respect. I respect Thomas Sheridan. I think he's got intelligence. I think he's got high value, and that's why I'm a subscriber. But so many times I sit there and I say to myself, gee, Thomas Sheridan just made another video about saying that he's not an expert in. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, Ford, Ford Motors. God bless, Ford for making the Model T. Just because he made a Model T doesn't mean he's necessarily the greatest expert in foreign relationships or the arts. Do you know what I mean? So
Sure.
that's part of what it comes down to, distinguishing between opinion and fact.
All right, excellent. Anybody want to add to that?
On my mind, sorry. My
No, that was great.
My apologies to Thomas Sheridan.
Oh,
It's been on my mind. It's been on my
I'm
mind.
with you. I'm absolutely with you. I don't know that, any of the videos that I've made, I'm very proud of all of them. So, and as far as our show goes, that's pretty much, except for an occasional mirror here and there, I don't put up anything on my channel these days.
Well, I did notice, Chanter, that, and I'm sorry, Amy, did I just step on your toe there? Finish your
Not
sentence.
too badly, no. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I did notice that some of your subscribers were commenting, and they were very happy that you seemed to be back in action on your channel, and pretty pleased that you were re-uploading or unprivatizing those videos. So regardless, I would only say that regardless of how you or anyone may feel in terms of what you just said about the actual content, you may feel that you upload a video that has no particular value. I would only say that there are such a wide brand of people that somebody is going to get something out of it. And judging from the comments on your channel, I would say that is pretty much the case, that most of your particular subscribers are pretty well in tune with who you are and what you're about, and they all seem very pleased that you were back in action.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a blessing, and believe you me, I tell people all the time, I'm a very reactionary dude. So I've taken my videos offline, but this is the third or fourth time that I've done this, and usually it's usually the same events. I take everything offline, and then I reassess things, and I put things up, slowly. And it's heartening to know that there are people out there that have given me positive feedback, and it's true. And but you got to be careful, because what can end up happening is that, and I think it's very important to know, as we make this transition, we are making the transition as a society from the quote unquote mainstream media to the quote unquote alternative media. This is a sociological fact that people are turning away from mainstream broadcast television and cable television and tuning their eyes for their news and their data gathering, information gathering, to the internet, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, whomever, however it may come through. As we do that, we need to, as the quote unquote alternative media, we have to say to ourselves, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And we want to look at traditional schools of journalism and traditional journalistic techniques and say to ourselves, how can we utilize these tools to right the wrongs and make sure the wrongs just don't get repeated again? One of the biggest problems that I find with alternative media can be crystallized in the controversy regarding David Seaman, who became critically kind of associated with the Pizzagate conspiracy or phenomena. Now, anyone who follows David Seaman knows that he's gone through some troubles and travails, and he's currently under attack. And I was very critical of David Seaman and his journalistic approach. But the things that we need to learn and understand is that be careful, because when we move from mainstream media, what were the problems with mainstream media? Corporate control. The people with the money, the people with the purse strings are going to have an undue influence on the information that comes out. Well, in the alternative media, that could be exaggerated rather than downplayed, because if you have someone whose entire livelihood is tied up into their Patreon donations, or their PayPal donations, or their AdSense revenue from Google, baby, believe you me, that's going to influence their coverage and what they do. So we have to be careful and wary of that, and always ask ourselves, are we doing the best possible work? And are we just feeding our own ego? So for me, it's very easy. If you put up a YouTube channel and you're like me and you've got a quick tongue, or you've got a funny way of being, or kind of a funny sensibility about you, you're going to get, viewers, and you're going to get fans. But what you need to realize is that you need to have your own integrity to say that even though there are people that want, because before you know it, the crowd will start clamoring. And you'll say things like, I'll say things like, oh, I want to do more positive videos. And there'll be plenty of people that say, forget that, man. Give them hell. You're the only one out here telling the truth. Rip them a new one. They deserve it. You're going to let them get away with it? And then also, if you try to take a calmer, softer, more gentle approach, believe you me, you'll have people who will be right there to tell you. You guys have known it. Believe you me, I don't need to know you or interview or talk to you to know that you've gotten plenty of emails that are like, sell out, shell.
Sure.
Covering up, just another COINTELPRO jerk, spreading out this disinformation shenanigans to cover up the real truth.
Yeah, well, I was actually accused yesterday for the first time of working for the Illuminati cabal as a disinfo agent.
Oh, there you go. You popped your cherry. Congratulations. We should have a party.
Congratulations. Welcome to the truth community.
Listen, you're nobody until. Listen, I do this all the time. You know what I do all the time?
You're nobody until they call you a shill.
Oh, listen, believe me, I do this all the time because this is okay to me. This little hand signal is okay.
Yeah,
right?
It's not 666.
The minute you do that, people will be like, "Oh my God!" They'll start counting. Ian did 7 666s.
Yeah.
No coincidence. Believe you me.
But when you're sitting there going like this, then you know we have some issues.
Oh, I do it all. I give all the hand signals. I try to do the do sign of the third guard of the mark of the angel.
The finger up.
Everything I can do. Believe you me. They're signaling each other.
Trump does all this. Yeah, he does this.
I got the eye.
Yeah, let's not forget the hidden hand.
The hidden hand, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We better cut it out, or
Trump does it all the time, though. He goes like this, and he goes like this, and he goes like this.
People need to realize that this is what.
But it's just hand gestures. I mean, you don't even have to think about doing that. You have to think about doing this. You don't have to think about doing that.
That's true.
There's X amount of things that people are going to do with their hands. You can make a circle. You can make a fist. You can put all the hands out. You can do 1, 2, 3.
Even people sit like this. They go, "Oh, Illuminati, Tony's making the pyramid sign."
Everything. Believe you me, everything. That's what we got to be careful for.
I sit like this sometimes.
Absolutely, you do.
Because my hand out like that. Like
people are going to do natural things with their hands.
Yeah.
And what people need to realize is that not everything is everything. And I like your cat. It's almost a clone of my cat, Lenny. There you go, in the back there and there.
Yeah, we should have made it a better deal. We should have made it. You have to drink every time you have to take your cat off your lap.
Oh, believe me, he's the worst.
We'd be half tanked, we'd be half tanked by now.
Then now you know why he's my favorite cat. You know what I mean? Give me another excuse. But so we go round and round, and so what is happening is that you have to realize that if you want to get involved, you get involved, but there's going to be questions along the way. There's going to be compromises, and you're going to have to do some reassessments. And so that's what happened with me, is that you guys find me at a point where I've been doing the channel for about 1.5 years. I learned a lot, and a lot of what I learned made me realize and understand that maybe every once in a while, maybe it's good to shut down a YouTube channel and start a new one, or to reassess or to reevaluate how you do things and make a change. And just in the hopes of, and also just trying to figure out, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to slam people? Do you want to kick people in the D? Do you want to kick people in the dirt? Or are you trying to build bridges that are going to move the community towards some sense of growth and change? And it's hard. It's not easy to do, and sometimes it can feel impossible, and sometimes it feels like the best thing to do is shut off the channel and go back to the real world, because nothing ever changes, right? That's the other thing that can happen too, is that you can end up feeling like you talk and you talk and you talk, and you end up, quote unquote, preaching to the choir. The people
Right.
that already have the information in their heads, that are already conspiracy theorists, that are already truthers, will lap it up with a spoon. And the people that don't, they're not even tuned in.
Well, to be honest with you, I personally, and I'm pretty sure that my colleagues here are the same. We've discussed this, and they can speak for themselves. But personally, I'm not doing this for the views. I'm not doing this for the viewer. I'm not doing it for the view count. I'm not doing it for subscribers. The reason Ian and I began this endeavor that we're engaged in is simply for our own knowledge, because we are, as you and so many other people, we're just regular people. We're independent researchers. When we have time, we do what we can to find as much truth as we can. And I just decided, we decided that we would we'd call it a show, we'd give it a name, we would invite people to come and talk to us. And if other people could get something out of it, then so be it. We'll make it public for that benefit as an ancillary benefit. But the number one reason I'm doing it is for my own intellectual growth, period. End of conversation. I mean, that, and like I said, I don't really care if we have 5 people watching right now, we got 25 people watching, we have 100 people watching. I personally don't care if my subscribers grow. I mean, I do. It's nice to see it. And, you know, I do have an ego. I'm a realist like yourself. I do have an ego, and it's nice to see my channel grow, and it's nice to get some recognition, kudos, pats on the back. But the reason I started this is not for the views. It's not for anybody who's watching. And if anybody can get something out of this, then hurrah, that's just an ancillary benefit. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing it for my own growth.
God bless you. And that's the attitude and agenda that's going to take it to the next level.
Mainly just we want to, you know, it's almost like verbal diarrhea, right? It's a way to just unleash everything we know and get a second opinion about it.
Yes,
right?
yes, hash things out.
Form more concrete conclusions based on other people's ideas and inputs, right? And that's what I like about it most. And also, CW, we're very intimate with the chat as well. I'm watching the chat the whole time we've been on the broadcast right now, right? So,
okay.
And like I said, the chat guys, if there's anyone that has a question for the guest, just type it in all caps, so it'll pop. It'll you know,
easier for us to spot it among all the banter.
Spot it. Lately, our chats have been growing, which is really nice. We've got 27 viewers I see right now on here, so that's good. Are we going to take a 5-minute break, Eric? Do you have anything to queue up for the break for us?
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I'll play some of Zach's music. I owe him some of that. And
sure.
Just to go back to what Chanter had said a moment ago about preaching to the choir, which made me think to say what I said there. That I really am doing this for myself.
God bless you.
We are doing it in a live forum with a live chat box, and we absolutely love this platform, because going back to the original premise of why we do it, the people in the chat box are pretty bright folks. They often will correct us, or they will inject additional information related to the topic at hand, or they'll remind us of things that we forget. And so, again, this is for my own personal knowledge, my own personal growth, and it's open source research, as James Corbett has coined that term, I think.
God bless James Corbett, right?
Yeah, I do like James Corbett. So, again, you know, we do it on the open forum for the purpose of the additional information, and it's a beautiful thing.
God bless.
Yeah.
No, listen, you know, that sounds like you got a great attitude, and an attitude that that I've learned is absolutely necessary. So you're ahead of the game, believe you me. You know that it's true. You got to have your own. You got to be rooted in your own integrity to move forward in the YouTube domain. Because if you're not, baby, it's like anything. It's like the rock and roll club scene or the disco scene. If you're not standing in your integrity, you'll walk in. It'll chew you up and spit you out. Corporate America, you got to know who you are, where you stand, and what you stand for. Yeah. Or you're just going to be blown away.
I've noticed one thing with the bigger YouTube channels, the ones like the bloggers, the daily bloggers, who get millions of views a day, right? They they got approached just a couple of years ago where they have to put in advertising within their blog.
Right.
They have to plug something within their blog, right? Themselves. So it's all basically, a contract.
Oh yeah, and forget it. Meet the tea or get the tea or drink the
Basically
tea.
sold their soul to YouTube, sold out.
Die to nature's earth and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
absolutely.
Our friend Juxtapose is in the chat room right now. So anybody who is interested, I'm going to play a little bit of his music. His channel is all about creating these little sound clips. Okay, and so that's really all his channel is about, and he's got a lot of good stuff on there. I'm going to go ahead and play Subduster. This is a 2.5 minute break we're going to take, and we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. And once again, this is Juxtapose, Subduster. So we'll see you in 2.5 minutes.
See you then.
Awesome.
I love that one, Zach. I really do.
Yeah, that's
one of my
very
favorites.
cool. Very cool.
Just wish we had more thumping bass on here. Huh?
Well, you can go over to Zach's channel and put on your headphones and get a good sound, get a good listen. He's got a lot of good stuff over there, and he collaborates with Eddie B, and they put some lyrics on some of these tunes that Zach creates. So everybody go over to Zach's channel, show him some love. He's got good stuff over there. So looks like Chanter's not back yet. You know what I did want to show and share with you guys? I'm going to do a screen share. And there's one more article I wanted to throw at you that was really kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a head scratcher. Let's see, where did it go? It's this right here, I think. This is about the economic breakdown that's happening in Venezuela. Some of you may be familiar with.
Right.
Well, it's spreading into Brazil. They're having, according to this article here, the economic collapse blog or vlog or website here. This headline is, "This region of the world is being hit by the worst economic collapse it has ever experienced." This article is by Michael Snyder, March 7th, 2017. The ninth largest economy in the entire world is currently experiencing its longest and deepest recession in recorded history. And in a country right next door, people are being encouraged to label their trash so that thousands upon thousands of desperately hungry people that are out digging through trash bins on the streets can find discarded food more easily. Of course, here, let me expand this so you guys can see. Of course, the two nations that I'm talking about are Brazil and Venezuela. The Brazilian economy was once the 7th largest on the globe, but after shrinking for 8 consecutive quarters, it has now fallen to the 9th place. And in Venezuela, the economic collapse has gotten so bad that more than 70% of the population lost weight last year due to the severe lack of food. Most of us living in the Northern Hemisphere don't think anything like this could happen. Blah, 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 blah. He actually says that he actually mentions that, you know, if this hit America, it would be a good thing. And it's a little sarcasm because of all the fat asses running around this country. But check this out. This is no joke here. This is, let me see. Let me jump the next one down here. In a stunning deterioration, the unemployment rate in Brazil spiked to 12.6%. in the rolling 3-month period through January, a record in the new data series going back to 2012, according to Brazil's statistical agency IBGE, up from 11.8%, blah, 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 blah. But look at this, look at this. A controversial priest and opponent to President Maduro's administration, Father Jose Palmer, posted on social media this week about labeling discarded waste so those looking through it for food can do so more easily and, quote, with fucking dignity.
Huh. Wow.
Well, I don't know how dignified scraping people's trash is, but I do think that it would be better than trying to go through everything and trying to, trying to find food in places where there is none. And, I'm all for sharing such things if you have
besides the disturbing aspect that people are eating cats and dogs, pigeons, what I mean? They're eating their pets. Yeah. They're scrounging for food in trash dumps and waste bins. Besides that particularly disturbing aspect, this freaking character here, Father Jose Palmer, probably thinks to himself he's actually doing a good thing. Palmer called on Venezuelans to celebrate Lent by identifying bags where food has been discarded for those with nowhere else to turn. That way, they don't have to dig through the non-edible items to find it. This guy probably thinks he's doing some good with this.
Yeah. Well, why doesn't the church get out there and open up soup kitchens?
He's perpetuating the crisis. He's actually aiding in the crisis itself. Right? Instead of fixing the core problem, hey, how about we sell the Pope? Let's sell the Pope's staff, and then we can feed all of Venezuela.
Well, exactly. From what I understand, the Vatican could open up their checkbook and feed every man, and clothe, and house every man, woman, and child on the planet.
Right, absolutely. And here we are. We're all worried about world poverty, while meanwhile, the elephant in the room sits there and stares at you.
And that's what I'm working to fix.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to solve is poverty. Poverty, oppression, wage debt, slavery.
Psychopathy.
Solve for the psychopaths in control. Get them out of control.
Okay, so looks like we have Chanter back with us.
Absolutely.
Chanter, if you have nothing to add to that particular blood-boiling article that I just read there, if you're not bothered by that, and I don't mean you in particular, I mean the audience in general.
Right. Well, personally, you look at a situation like Venezuela and you say to yourself, what happens when it gets here? And I tell people all the time, I go, look, I go, if you prepare and nothing bad happens, hey, what's the harm? You prepared and you're, you know, it didn't turn out to be a problem that you had to deal with, but at least you were prepared. Better to be prepared for a problem that doesn't happen than to be unprepared for a problem that does.
Right.
So,
In other words, it's better to have and not need than need and not have.
Better, yeah, exactly. Better safe than sorry. And the people in America really need to realize there are so many people that are coasting on just the theory that they can rely upon a consistency of experience from day one to day two to day three. Things in America, we've gone through good phases and we've gone through bad phases. And right now, America is just in denial. You have an amazing amount of people whose lifestyle is based 100% on credit, non-actualized, wealth or income. And it's a shell game, and it's a house of cards that's going to come apart, and it's probably going to come apart sooner rather than later.
Well, the question I would have is, take somebody like me. There's no way I can prepare. I've got no home. I've got no income. I've got no, I'm disabled. I finally got my diagnosis. I have psoriatic arthritis and I have fibromyalgia, whatever that really is. And, what can I do?
Right. Look, I mean, yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of us in that situation. We are unable to do anything. The only thing I am capable of doing is pointing in a direction that's better than where we are now,
right,
and where we're going from here, if things keep up.
We find ourselves in certain positions. There's certain things that we can do, and there's certain things that we can do. Look, I love my family. I love my wife. I love my kids. If I had the power to get one of those multi-million-dollar hideout bomb shelters that seem to be all the rage amongst the powerful and elites today, I'd run out and grab one. But unfortunately, like you, Amy, we find ourselves in a situation where we have to be realistic and honest with what's in our control and what's out of our control. It's that great old thing like the Serenity Prayer. God bless me to know the distinction, the difference between the things that I can control and the things that I can't control, and to know the difference, or else you'll drive yourself crazy. So you got to do the best with what resources you have at hand. And I think, more so my point is not aimed to the people that cannot do. I mean, if people find themselves in positions, they find themselves in positions. What I'd really like to do is knock on the doors of the people that do have the ability, if they would just pay attention and just realize that don't worry about the sporting event. Don't worry about how your team is going to do. Don't worry about this stock option or that stock option. There's bigger and better things for you to worry about, like if you've got potable water and food and freeze-dried food in your household that can get your family through 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever it is you can do, because the future is not promised to anybody. People need to realize that places like Syria and Venezuela, we don't have to travel but 20, 25 years back in the past to produce home videos and movies of people living in Venezuela and Syria, people living lifestyles that people would look at and say, these people are living exactly like Americans are doing today. They're happy, they're healthy, they got food, they got video games, they've got big screen TVs, they've got food in the cupboard. Everything is doing great. Everything's fantastic. But that's the thing. You turn around. Unfortunately, you can turn around and life can knock you on the side of the head and say, oh, yeah, you know how people live through the Depression? You know how people live through the Dust Bowl? You know how people live through the potato famine? Well, guess what? Now it's your turn. Remember the fall of the Roman Empire? Guess what? Now it's your turn to realize that just because your country used to be number one, the big cheese, doesn't mean necessarily that your country is going to be number one and the big cheese for time immemorable. And you too might have to find yourselves drawing in your belt tight, going without, making those transitions from imported beer to domestic beer to no beer. Do you know what I mean? And having to take it on the chin and deal with it. And believe you me, brothers and sisters, there's plenty of people that we know in our communities that are going to be able to deal with it. And there's plenty of people in today's mollycoddled society that are going to absolutely freak the F out.
Yeah.
Right?
No kidding. Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
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 The problems with famine and the problems with natural disaster, only a portion of those problems are associated with the actual famine or natural disaster. A good majority of the problems that people are going to have to deal with and issues that people are going to have to deal with are man-made problems called man. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's tough out there.
Called psychopaths in control. Really, because I mean, we start out being indoctrinated.
God's laws. It started off with God's laws, but then they all get corrupted.
Well, you know, there's really, as far as I can tell, really only 3 laws, and those are the 3 laws of ethics.
Yeah.
You know, they
call
natural law or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I call them the 3 laws of ethics because, you know, if everybody kept to those 3 laws, yeah, some people might be, you know, douchebags saying things like, you know, ad hominem and all that, but they're not, ad hominem doesn't hurt anyone, you know. Any pain felt is chosen by the person on the receiving end. That's not the response of, you know, how you feel is your choice in that respect.
Well, that's an excellent point, and far be it from me to ever pat Dr. Phil on the back, but he is a proponent of that concept as well and I think he's quoted as saying that I'm not responsible for your happiness.
Exactly.
That's really what that boils down to, is I'm not responsible for your happiness.
Well,
if I say something, just like you said, if I say something that upsets you, it's up to you to receive that message or information in a way that either upsets you or not upsets you.
Right. Well, the thing is, when you get into choice theory, what is explained is that we choose how we feel by what we think about and how we think about what we're thinking about.
Right.
So, you know, I can think, you know, somebody insulted me. I could think, oh my gosh, I'm so hurt. It feels terrible. I'm so hurt. Okay. I'm thinking about it in those terms. Or I could think about kitty cats and, you know, not even think about it.
Reaction is a choice. Reaction is a choice.
Exactly.
Your response and your reaction is a choice in every situation, no matter what. If I was to call you the worst horrible name in the world, you could still choose to laugh it off and think me an idiot, or you could take it quite personally and stew on it for weeks and go into a deep depression.
Yeah, I have an article on my site about that. In fact, I wrote, I'm trying to remember the title. I'm seeing if I can pull it up here. The title of the article is, where to go? Oh, come on. I had it here a moment ago, and now I can't find it. It's something about who needs, I remember there it is, Triggered, a very short article.
Triggered,
Who needs safe spaces?
Yeah, we got a problem with that, don't we?
That's it.
Yeah, they're trying to make the person who said the words responsible for how the person received
and if you're triggered and you want to feel violent, you feel like you got to punch somebody because they said a word that you didn't like, that it's not your fault for punching them or becoming violent.
Exactly.
It's the fault of the person who spoke.
And I am so anti that, I can't tell you.
I think we all are, really. I think there's only a tiny handful of the social justice warriors that are overinflated much like a lot of things in the media.
Yes.
Did you hear this week they have what's called nap-ins now?
What?
Napkins?
Nap-ins, like a safe space or those sit-ins. They have nap-ins where you can.
Oh, nap in.
If you're so stressed out about Trump being the president, you can go have a nap. And
Oh, jeez.
Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Come on, naps. I mean, come on. Let's not go anti-nap.
Sure. Let's not go
anti-nap. Like nap-ins. If you're so stressed out and tired from it all, you can go have a nap.
I hear the insanity. I mean, the insanity of the safe space is basically. I mean, look, we got ourselves this far. We've gone through things like the World War II generation, the greatest generation of all time. And here we are 40 years, 2 generations out, and people need safe spaces because they can't deal with verbiage.
Because somebody didn't like the dress they were wearing.
Somebody said something they didn't like. So. Yeah. Well, that's the liberal mindset nowadays.
Well, now, so here's where I think I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's not so much the liberal mindset per se, but it is what they want us to think the liberal mindset
it's
is.
There you go.
Another scenario of manufactured consent.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. What they want to do is the powers that be want the left dealing with the right as a stereotype, and they want the right dealing with the left as a stereotype. So they take the individual and they turn them into the SJW or the alt-righter or the fascist or the anarchist or the mollycoddled university liberal. There's all these terms and words that people want to have when dealing with the other people in the world. And so what people need to really know and understand is that united we stand, divided we fall. People have got to be able to get to a space where they don't get so caught up with the particulars that they miss the strength of their agreement on the generalities. Meaning this, okay, everyone in this room who's been part of this community knows there are situations where a person two people might agree that the U.S. election is a scam, and the person that's put into power is the person that's elected, not selected. Okay. But then we get into a raging, screaming bitch fight over whether or not Donald Trump is this or Hillary Clinton is that or this. The particulars and the nuances, people have got to be able to get together over the big picture situations, meaning that if you know there's a problem in U.S. society or government that needs to be addressed and changed for the preservation of life on planet Earth for not only U.S. citizens, but for world citizens, then that's where we need to go. And it's a shame and it's a shanda and it's a disgrace if the reason that we can't get in there is because people can't come to an agreement about whether or not there was actually a UFO crash at Roswell and whether or not the powers that be have electrogravitic technology that they stole from the alien AI. You know what I mean? People get together.
They stole it from the alien AI, but I know they have it.
Well, you know what I'm saying in the sense this is that if I don't believe that the electrogravitic technology exists and you do, what a shame it is if that becomes the stumbling block that prevents us from getting together and working towards a solution to getting rid of this two-party mockery we have.
Yes,
that's what I see when I look at the media, the community at large. Is that people are willing to go to war over the smallest particulars, totally losing the fact that there's solidarity and kinship over the big picture issues.
Yes, walking out of the play on the literal world stage.
Okay, so
solidarity doing that.
All right. Sorry to change the subject a little bit. We've got a question in the chat box. Someone familiar with you, obviously. Paul Noel is asking, where's his Randy Kramer update?
Paul Noel is the one that, God bless Paul Noel, because he's the one guy that consistently asks about Randy Kramer. So if people know my channel, they know that I have a bit of a reputation going after a certain class of individual in the alternative media community. The so-called alien contactee, whistleblower, the Illuminati insider, whistleblower, the reptilian agenda knower, whistleblower. These people that come out with these fantastic stories, like Randy Kramer, who claims that he was part of the Space Marines and that he was abducted at the age of 17. He was taken to Mars. He had to fight aliens on Mars, just like, Robinson Crusoe. And then he was age regressed back when he came back to planet Earth. And now on planet Earth, his life, just like the life of Corey Goode, is indistinguishable from the life of any everyday average American human being. But little do you know that these people are actually intimately involved and know the secrets of the super secret space program, the breakaway civilization, life on Mars. And so I talk about these people, and Randy Kramer in particular is a guy that I've talked about, that I've been very interested in exploring his work, and not so many other people are. And I might go well ahead and say that Paul Knoll may be Randy Kramer, because Paul Knoll shows up in every chat box I'm even marginally associated with and demands to know answers about Randy Kramer. If Randy Kramer makes another video, I'll be able to make another video about Randy Kramer. But unfortunately, Randy Kramer has been essentially radio silent for a majority of period of time. But that's the life cycle of these individuals. John Lear, Bob Lazar, Caruso. These people come out, they tell you these fantastic stories, and they exist on the world stage for a certain amount of time until they realize that they're not going to make $1 and a cent out of it, and then they retire or go back to normal life, or until people get sick and tired of hearing them. Was he just on interview? Was he just being, apparently people are telling me in the chat box that he's just been interviewed on Russia Today by Sean Stone. But then again,
Well, he's on RT, Sean Stone.
Would he be? He might be. Who wouldn't be?
He's on that Buzzsaw. What's that on?
Buzzsaw is on Gaia. So here's the thing. Now, two things that I want to talk about, just because they came up, and I definitely want to hit on one thing that Aaron said in the intro. That was a very interesting story that I want to make sure gets fully played out regarding Danny Masterson. But on the subject of Randy Kramer and Sean Stone being on this thing called Gaia TV, I consider myself part of the New Age community, for want of a better term. People are involved in this alternative community. Some people come at it from more of the conspiracy angle. Some people come at it from more from the spiritual angle. People have different takes on it. I call and consider myself a New Ager because it's just the best term that exists for the melange of spiritual instincts and agendas that I'm interested in and that I feel part of. Having said that, so the alternative, it gets all, mixed in its muddle. And I apologize. I may have lost my train of thought. I'm just being realistic and honest. Oh, Gaia TV. So what I tell people in the alternative community and the New Age community all the time is that there should be an effort and an agenda to try and get together communally, to try and get a little bit more solidarity going on this community. Because if people don't do it organically, people are going to do it externally for an agenda. If you look at Gaia TV started off as an independent cable channel that was primarily interested in promoting yoga, right? Lifestyle, vegan and vegetarian cuisine, yoga. They have since expanded out and have become associated with Linda Moulton Howe, who has a show on there. She's a UFO conspiracy theorist who's now associated with Gaia TV. They now own David Wilcock. They now own Corey Goode. They're associated with Jay Widener. So they're making this organization out of Colorado called Gaia TV is making moves to try and be kind of like the Alex Jones of the New Age spiritual community. And people should be wary of that. And people should know and understand that the people that associate with these organizations should be looked at. And I think that the information that's being promoted by these organizations should be looked at. I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you are a member of MUFON since 1988, you're going to see a guy like Corey Gooden say, I've seen this story 1,003 times. I know exactly how to analyze the situation. I know exactly what box to put him in. I know exactly what questions to ask, and I know exactly why this is a problem that we've seen before. But if you're a 42-year-old somebody out in the middle of Akron, Ohio, who's just getting interested in things like New Age spirituality, UFOlogy, conspiracy theory, and all of a sudden your cable box is saying to you that there's a channel called Gaia TV where you can get all this information, you're getting that data, but you're getting into a very different worldview, and you might not necessarily have the tools and the talent to digest this information and realize that just because Corey Good is out here saying that the blue avians are parked just outside of Jupiter, ready to move in at the slightest moment, you could think that there's something really going on here. But if you've been tuned into UFOlogy since George Adamski in 1955, you probably have a bigger skill set to say, okay, I'll take it with a grain of salt. I'll hope for the best, but I'm not selling my condo just yet.
Right.
There you go. And not to get too bit of a rant on it, but just to get it out of the way because I mentioned it when we were talking about the Danny Masterson story. What people need to know and understand is that look, I've been exposed to a variety of different religious thinkers in my life and a variety of different religious theologies, including the work of L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. I'm very interested in Scientology and I'm very interested in the work of L. Ron Hubbard. Having said that, that doesn't mean that I turn a blind eye to the fact that Scientology is a very controversial faith and Scientology is a very controversial organization. And if we're going to talk about things like Danny Masterson and what he may or may not have been allowed to get away with in Hollywood, you're going to need to look at the connections between him and Scientology. Danny Masterson was born into Scientology. If you look at the story that's being, promoted online regarding what's happened with Danny Masterson, what's happened to Danny Masterson is happening to a lot of Scientologists, where the control paradigm that was in place by an organization that used to be able to pull a lot of strings in Hollywood, in Toronto, in the city of London, where have you, now may not be able to provide those exact same protections to people. And if people want to talk about why Scientology may have been allowed or been able to protect Danny Masterson, you're going to have to look at Scientology's involvement with the U.S. government through things like the Stanford Research Institute, people like Ingo Swann, and different levels of involvement that do exist and are palpable between the organization known as the Church of Scientology and the U.S. government. Just throwing it out there. If we're throwing things out there that are interesting food for thought or interesting research angles that people can follow up on or look into, I definitely think that that's one on there. And it's been tickling the back of my brain since you mentioned it at the start of the show. I hope that doesn't seem like too much of a non sequitur.
No, that's fine, actually. And I'm going to change the subject again unless anybody has something to add.
Go for it.
Go for it.
I got nothing.
Okay. Listen, your interview with Carla St. Louis was really, really brilliant, by the way. You did a great job, and your guest was brilliant. There's a couple of things I want to go over regarding that particular interview. And one of them actually relates to our resident troll who has already thumbed down our video 14 to 15 right now.
Oh, please, you got one resident troll?
Oh,
Go
yeah,
home.
and he's got.
I've got trolls to beat the band.
He's got 10 or more sock accounts that we've already identified, and I don't know how many more above that, but irrelevant. Listen, here's the thing.
Right.
You're an attorney, and I want to ask you this question. And it was Carla St. Louis who actually mentioned this in your interview, and what she mentioned was a legal term known as in loco parentis. Okay, because Carla is an educator, I understand. And absolutely. I forget exactly how you got on that subject, but that legal term in loco parentis is one that I had recently looked up or discovered accidentally while researching the validity of a claim made by our resident troll. His I won't even invoke his name, but look, here's the thing.
Don't.
he runs around the internet, and he thinks he's going to save the world because he solved the case of the Chattanooga school bus crash. And as soon as you disagree with him, then he's your troll forever, and you'll never get rid of him. Anyway, here's the thing. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I wouldn't be surprised if you're not. In Chattanooga, I forget when, it was last year, I think, there was a school bus crash. A lot of people on the internet, like you said earlier, 45 minutes later, they're already making videos calling it fake and calling it a hoax and a false flag. This person who is our troll has claimed to have proven this to be real. And for the most part, I agree with him. However, one major issue I have is that we have seen images, pictures and video of parents taking their children home from the crash site. And I got into a little bit of an argument with him because I'm one of those people who I think that there is protocols and there's legalities and liabilities involved that I don't think that would ever happen anywhere in this country at all, ever. And I mean, in today's day and age, every kid's got a cell phone. They would call their mom, I got in the crash. I'll be there in a minute. Where are you? Okay. And she's there, blah, blah, blah. But I can't imagine any first responder. I can't imagine the school bus driver, any school administrator, anybody on site, no police officer, none of the first responders would allow children to go home with their parents in a school bus crash. So you're the attorney. You give me your attorney opinion. Is that something that could happen? Is it even a possibility?
Well, anything is a possibility. Here's what you have to realize. When you're dealing with human actors can act rationally or irrationally. And because you know that humans can act within those two state of affairs, and one of those state of affairs is irrationality, you know that it's very hard. People can draw conclusions or want to draw conclusions from individual behaviors of individual actors and individual events. Let me say it this way. First of all, the concept of in loco parentis is a Latin term, and it basically means the local parent.
Sure.
And where it classically becomes invoked or involved is when you're dealing with border situations, meaning that a child is attending a boarding school where they're in school in Massachusetts, but their parents live in Rhode Island. And so you have assessments of in loco parentis, meaning that the responsibilities and duties, certain parental responsibilities and duties that would have been performed by the biological parents or the adopted parents now fall upon the school superintendent, sure, the principal, the warden, the headmistress, what have you. So whenever you have individual situations, you need to know and understand that basically what the invocation of in loco parentis is going to mean in the outset is that if you've got a situation where you've got minors, there are people that are going to be legally responsible for those minors.
Right.
Now you could have situations, and it happens all the time, and I've encountered it in my own life, where you show up on a scene, something's going on, there's a situation involved. You're the parent of the child. There's no reason for you to not say to yourself, I'm going to remove my child from this situation. And you've got some, dunderhead who's not looking at the spirit of the law, but is looking at the letter of the law and saying, well, actually, it's within, school hours, so we can't technically let the kid leave with you unless your name is on the parental slip, and we can't let your kid leave because we don't have access to the parental slips because they're inside the building, and the fire department has told us we can't get in. This is my kid. I'm taking him home. You know what I mean? It can get ridiculous, and certain things can be hard to understand and assess. So I'm not familiar with the Chattanooga bus accident per se, other than hearing about it. So I can't really, I'm at a loss to try and assess the individual actions of the individual behaviors. But if you were asking me about in loco parentis, I would tell you, like any legal term, it's a complicated term that can be interpreted correctly, it can be misinterpreted, and it's subject to interpretation. And unfortunately, we live in a society where 9 times out of 10, you're not going to realize what's going on until an assessment is made, months down the line. If you had particular issues about the Chattanooga bus situations that you could describe or explain to me, I might have more feedback to you regarding, my take on it or my assessment of the situation or of the particulars. But just looking at the just given what I can put my hands around with what you've given me, which is the term in local parentis, is just to know and understand that it basically means the local parent. That when the actual caregiver is not available, who ends up taking responsibility and what decision making they have. It's of particular note and import in today's society when we're dealing with things like right to medical care or obligated medical care, especially when it comes to obligated medical care like vaccines. Who has the right and responsibility to say that this kid needs or doesn't need a vaccine? Is it the parent that gets to make the decision, the biological or adoptive parent or legal guardian that gets to make the decision, or is it the school board? It's a very interesting question in today's day and in society, and it's a question that we're going to find ourselves dealing with more and more. Believe you me, as a citizen of the United States, there have been plenty of reasons why I've told my wife, or I've had to tell my wife, and we've agreed that if push comes to shove and they're telling us that the kids have to get injection 1 or injection 2 or injection 3 or injection 4 in order to go to the local school system, we might find ourselves having to make a tough decision regarding whether or not we send the kids to that school system, or whether or not, in an effort to try and preserve their health, we keep them out. Difficult decisions, complicated decisions, and complicated decisions that people are finding themselves having to encounter more and more. Blood transfusion for the Jehovah's Witness baby, et cetera, et cetera. There's every individual question is going to have its own complicated philosophical and, ethical arguments that you're going to have to wrestle with.
Okay, so fair enough. It's not necessarily beyond the realm of possibility that a parent would show up and in the midst of chaos, swoop their kids up and get them out of there. Okay, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I would allow for that. I just have a really hard time imagining anyone from the school or any first responder being given that they may be aware of that situation that they would allow something like that. Because since you're not familiar, I'll just throw it at you just so you have a little better idea. It was a rollover crash. 6 children supposedly died, so it was a very serious crash. And I won't get into the comment that this fella made where he said, no protocol, no school protocol would override a parent's intuition. I would take my kid home and have a nap. That's basically what he said.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Aaron. I mean, to the sense that as a parent, what I'm saying is that I agree with you that if someone were to show up on the scene and say, "I'm just going to take my child from this violent car crash," then any first responder or medical professional on the scene would say, "Are you kidding me? The risk of trauma." The risk of
internal
contusion,
injuries, head trauma,
concussion,
liabilities that the child needs in a medical evaluation. So I just have a real hard time imagining that kids would just get to go home with their parents after such a serious crash.
Yeah, okay. I would
I'm
guess,
just not buying that.
I would guess
that they'd be taken somewhere to be examined, and then with their parents, with them,
Yeah, I would.
Like you said, there's liability.
The probability that the kids would be, just okay, go ahead, take them, is extremely low. That's what I'm going to say.
and then you also have to indicate. You also have to do an assessment of the probability that a normal parent would come to the scene of a traumatic bus accident and say to themselves, "What I really want to do is I want to not avail myself of the opportunity for free medical care, of having my child taken to the ER or to be assessed or evaluated. But what I'd much rather do is just take the kid home."
Right. Risking your child's health, and I just can't see many people.
Yeah,
I can't see anyone doing it really.
Well, okay, if you're the parent and you take your kid home, that's at the very least that's horrible parenting. And I mean, if you're the parent and you grab your kid and you say, "Okay, we're going to the hospital," then that's a whole different story. But okay, moving on. Your guest, Carla St. Louis, brilliant woman.
She's great.
She talked about pedagogy, which is a method of teaching, and how she was focusing on methods that reinforce the left-right brain to communicate effectively. Now, I am a musician. Ian is also a musician. I also find it remarkable that so many people in the quote truth or alternative research community are musicians. And I remember reading a very, very long time ago how children who take music classes and learn to play an instrument at a relatively young age, that what happens in the brain is the left brain and the right brain become very well paired, and they communicate very, very well as a result of the nature of learning music. So I thought that was interesting that she brought that up, and you feel free to add to that. And I've got another question regarding Carla.
Yeah, Cara St. Louise was amazing, and she was a great interview and a great get when I got her. You know, and what I think is amazing about her is the things that people that are generally interested in Cara St. Louise in this community, the things that they want her to talk about are not necessarily the things that I think are the most interesting things to hear her talk about. A lot of people want to talk about the conspiracy theories, her experiences at the People's Voice with David Icke, artificial intelligence, black goo, these sort of exotic things. But where she's at, one of her greatest strengths is that her years of experience as an alternative teacher, as a pedagogue, interested in the field of the Waldorf schools or the teachings of Rudolf Steiner. So a lot of what the most fascinating things that she has to say are conversations about the standardized school system in the West, America, Europe, Britain, and its basis on what's known as the Prussian model of education, which is great for creating armies, but is not necessarily great for creating and fostering intelligent, analytical minds.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking. So one of the great things when talking to her was the realization, and what I shared with her was this thing where I said to her, I said, people talk about, in today's conspiracy theory culture, there's some people, we were talking about Randy Kramer, Corey Goode, who have a certain credence or bona fides in the sense that they're being credited with having this extraordinary alternative knowledge of these alternative education programs, these MyLab or MK Ultra programs or these military abduction programs. And what I said to Cara St. Louise, and what she seemed to have a positive feedback on, was I said to her, I said, it occurs to me that if you're a product of the American education system or the British education system, you were part of a government program.
Right.
You know what I mean? By definition. And so that's a lot of the feedback that I got from her, and a lot of things that I think are very interesting when talking to her is that if people were to go back and realize how they were educated, they'd realize, how many built-in prejudices they have and how many built-in kind of shortcomings they have when it comes to their ability to freshly analyze new intellectual information, digest it, and come up with a solution. So we'll see where that goes, but it was an absolutely great interview that I did with her, and I was very, very happy to have gotten the opportunity to speak to her, and so it's up there and it's public. I wish I'll tell you this is that unfortunately I wish I had a chance or would have an opportunity to do a second or a third interview with Cara St. Louise, because she's a very powerful persona. She's a very strong personality, and there's definitely some questions that I think that if CW Chanter had been able to ask her, she would have definitely answered, and it would have been to the benefit of everybody. But I was just a little bit too starstruck on that interview, I dare say. It was a little bit too passive, because she knows exactly what she wants to say. She knows exactly how she wants to say it. She never shows up to anything without an agenda. This is not a gal who has, BS conversations. I remember when we first started talking about setting up the interview, I was like, we could do it this day, we could do it that day. And she was very like, no, we will, at the specific time, a specific date, a specific time with a specific agenda. That's how we'll do it. And she said to me, I'm not one of these people that hang out on Skype all day, just looking at BS with anybody. She's got an agenda. She's got time to do what she wants to do. She's got things that she has to do for the care of her kids and the care of her students that are going to take certain precedence, and she doesn't mess around, and God bless her. And so it was very, very happy to speak to her, and I'm very happy that she's a voice that's out there. But people need to pay attention to the places that she used to speak where she's no longer speaking, and ask themselves fundamental questions about why that is occurring. Because there's definitely things, she's not a bullshitter, she doesn't take any bullshit, and she speaks truth to power, and she pays the price. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that get a lot more interviews than she does, and I think that part of that is because she doesn't mess around.
Okay, excellent. I'm not sure if you're still in any communication with her, but I would love to reach out to her sometime and have an opportunity to speak to her myself. She's brilliant.
Yeah, no, she is. She's unfortunately, what occurred to me, and unfortunately, part of my interaction with her, kind of ended up petering out. I'll definitely put your information forward, and she would definitely be interested in speaking to you for no other reason other than she's got valuable information that she knows she's got a desire to put out there. But one of the things that we need to realize, and one of the things that I learned from my interview with her, is how much time we spend in an echo chamber in this conspiracy theory alternative media community, where so much of these interviews, there's no back and forth, there's no dialogue, there's no debate. It's just the presentation of information, which is valuable and good, but it really should be juxtaposed at this point with how long we've been doing this. The community is ready. We're mature enough. We can have two people on a show, not just one person, two people on debating an issue, right? Just because you know that 9/11 was an inside job, okay, well then let's get along. Let's figure out a directed energy attack, missile systems. Are the people from this flight alive and well and living in Chile, or did they die? Was it hijackers from Saudi Arabia, or were there CIA agents or Mossad agents? We got to debate these things. We have to dig in and get to the nitty-gritty. And unfortunately, we've become accustomed, I feel like, a community where we all just go on these shows and it's just people talking to people who generally agree with them. You have Ole Damigard, who appears on Alfred Lambermont Weber's show. They're both of a consensus of an opinion regarding the conspiracies or the actions of the Illuminati, the so-called cabal, or the so-called powers that be. And there's a problem. Ole Damigard should have his information put out there. But what would also be great is if there was another show where Ole Damigard would be debated about these points, where we could talk about and try and figure out if we all think the same thing or whether there's nuances of opinion that we can accommodate. And with dealing with Cara St. Louis, it became very obvious to me that she didn't like what was going on in the comment section underneath her video. I have a very liberal attitude when it comes to free speech. I don't care if you put FU CW Chanter in the comment section. If that's your opinion, if that's what you bring to the table, then okay. But, when Cara was on, she was saying to me or feeding back to me, she's like, you got to take control of your comment section. It's a character assassination. It's this, that, and the other thing. And I went to the comment section, and I looked at it, and I said to her, and I was honest with her, and I said, look, this is a situation where I think you're used to flying in a world where the vast majority of the people tuning in would be 100% on your point with your agenda or with your information or with your knowledge or with just being a fan. And what you have to realize is that if you come out here, or especially as the community grows, you got to be willing to take it on the chin every once in a while. And you got to hear people say to you that they think you're full of crap, or they think that this piece of information is irrelevant or doesn't factor into it. Having said all that, if Cara St. Louis were to appear on my show again, I'd be more than proud to have her on. I think she's dynamite. And she's a person who I not only want to encourage a relationship with in order to have her on my channel speaking and communicating eloquently like she does, but also as an educator. I would like to, I'm a parent, I'd like to know and have her in my life so I could get feedback from her regarding, development and education and these things that go on. She's a hell of a gal. Cara St. Louis is a real original. She's a real dog fighter. And I got to tell you, between a fist fight between her and Richie Allen, my money might be on her. And Richie Allen is a boxer, right?
Excellent. Well, I tell you what, we're only 3 minutes away from the top of the hour. How about we take another 2.5-minute break? And I'm going to play a little bit more Juxtapose. This one is 2 minutes and 45 seconds. And for anybody who's new and tuned in new, I'm not sure. Is Zach still in the Hangout? Is he still in the chat box over there? Have we seen? There he is. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take a 2 minute 45-second break, and this is Juxtapose, and this one's called Glass. All right, we're back with CW Chanter.
Yay.
Everybody back in the room here? Let me get back on page here. I had a chat box was open. Okay, so Mr. Chanter, I have another question for you relating to Kara. She actually brought up a topic which I would like to, I think this would be a good segue, because I did want to talk to you about what you know about the Max Spiers situation and the Miles Johnson situation.
Absolutely.
Kara brought up during your conversation, she said you gave Miles and Carrie, as in Carrie Cassidy, she said you gave Miles and Carrie an ass kicking, and something like 5 minutes after Max Spiers' death. Or maybe Miles and Carrie did an interview 5 minutes after. Forgive me, my notes are not totally clear. But she said, you said some things that we were all thinking. Does that ring a bell to you?
Absolutely. I mean, when Max Spiers passed away, two things happened that were very noticeable. Number one was the immediate lionization of Max Spiers. And all of a sudden, a whole bunch of different venues that had honestly never given the guy the time of day, all of a sudden bringing him up and associating him and lionizing him as this amazing freedom fighter and truth teller and yada yada. And the other thing was that certain people that were involved in the obvious exploitation of Max Spiers were all of a sudden coming out and, woe is us, and we loved him so much and he was taken from us and he was murdered and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, look, I've said it before and I said it again. There are if you look at the conspiracy theory community post Max Spiers, you will know and notice that there's been a significant drop off in play in people that are willing to talk to Miles Johnson Basis Project and Kerry Cassidy's Project Camelot. There just has been. These guys used to be able to have a new guy on every week, 2-3 new guys on a week, regarding disclosures about the super secret space program or artificial intelligent black goo or the gray aliens or the reptilians or what have you. And that has changed. And I think a lot of that has changed because people realized when they saw what happened to Max Spiers. I can tell you there are people that I know that realize that what happened to him could happen to them. You're going to die and your life is going to be taken away from you, and your mother and your children are going to have to grow up in a world where a whole bunch of people are saying a whole bunch of things about you, owning you in a way that you may not have wanted or desired. And also it just goes to show you like how quite frankly, how full of BS many aspects of the alternative media are. When it comes to a guy like Max Spiers, I can tell you my total 100% assessment of Max Spiers. There was a guy on the scene. There are many guys on the scene. They'll tell you what you want to hear. You want to hear about artificial intelligence black goo? They'll tell you about artificial intelligence black goo. You wanted them to tell you about the Nephilim giants that are in suspended animation waiting for the reptilian Draco to wake them up? They'll tell you that. You want to hear about the Fourth Reich battling people on the astral plane? They'll tell you that. Whatever you want to hear, they'll tell you because that's their job. And my assessment of Max Spiers at the end of the day is simple. He's a man with a history of drug abuse and drug addiction who probably, more likely than not, died of an opiate overdose while overseas in Poland. And what happens in retrospect?
Yeah, because we watched his last interview there.
Oh, he's out of it.
And a couple of his last, public appearances, what have you. And it seemed like he was drugged out of his mind. Like he was incoherent. He couldn't even get a whole sentence across before his mind would shift somewhere else. And
absolutely,
you could tell there was obviously something wrong with the guy at that point.
Right. And now, but in today's day and age, you have David Seaman associating his name with Pizzagate, saying that he was murdered because of Pizzagate. You have Miles Johnson all of a sudden taking him out of the freezer. Whereas if anyone paid attention to Max Spiers on the Miles Johnson Basis Project, he was second banana. He had a girlfriend named Sarah Rachel Adams, who was the star of the show because she looks good. And in this community, just like in every community, if you're attractive, you're going to move numbers.
Yeah.
And Miles Johnson, the Basis Project, always knew that quality trim moved numbers. Look at the number of females he interviews. Look how he interviews them. Look what questions he asks them. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional. He is.
Sure.
God bless him. Do what you do well. I'm not going to hate on you. I'm just going to observe it and say it is what it is. Max Spiers couldn't get arrested for Miles Johnson Basis Project. At the time of his passing, Max Spiers was in Poland because that's where he could go to talk, where people were still willing to book him, let him live with them, and let him stay there. And here's the dirty little secret. Take it from me. Take it from Jordan Maxwell. If you're doing this scene, if you're doing it because it's what you're called to do, God bless you. But if you think that you're going to make $1.01 out of this game, dream on. Dream on, brothers and sisters. Listen to Jordan Maxwell. Mm-hmm. If you tell truth for 100% of the time, your truth for 100% of the time, from morning, noon to night, you're going to wake up at the end of the day fucked. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's just the way that it goes. And people have a fantasy about what it is. They tune into YouTube and they see Max Spiers having an interview where he's getting 100,000 hits or whatever, and they think, oh, geez. And you think that Max Spiers must be out here living the life. You think that Kerry Cassidy must be out here living the life. That Jordan Maxwell, that David Icke, that these guys are just, they're rolling in it. And they wake up every day like a rock star. Dream on. Dream on. You know what I mean? If you want to make $1 and a cent in this world, invest in something lucrative like being a Pentecostal preacher, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a drug dealer, right? Whatever you do, don't speak truth to power. That's going to get you nowhere fast.
Yeah.
So Max Spiers, it's a complicated situation. It was especially complicated now because BBC are doing shows about him. Vice did a show about him. Why? Because the alternative community is large enough that if something makes a splash, it's going to make a splash, and people are going to want to talk about it. But just because people want to talk about him doesn't mean that he was doing amazing research. It doesn't mean that he was kicking ass and taking names. He wasn't.
No.
You know what I mean? If you look at the quality of the work that he does, this guy's never going to, he would have never written a book. He says what people want to hear. You go to the community and you tell people what they want to hear. The Arcturians are like this. The Palladians are like this. The reptilians act like this. They eat babies. The Third Reich were involved. They survived in Antarctica. And it's just, business. It's a business model.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, I hear you.
It's a for-profit business model.
No, I think that's absolutely a spot-on assessment. And I spent almost the whole week digging into Max Spiers because we were preparing to interview Global Agenda, who has done quite a bit of work on Max Spiers. And in that process, I came upon a couple of things or had a couple of my own revelations. One, that Miles Johnson was probably completely full of shit, in my opinion, mainly because and this is a hot button issue for myself and a lot of people, the worldwide occult child ritual trafficking pedophile network that is very real and absolutely exists. During the interview with Kerry Cassidy, she began to ask Miles a question about the occult and about the pedophiles. He cut her off and he immediately said, no, we need to get way, way, way away from this. This is about soul ransom. And to me, whether soul ransoming is a real thing or not, I won't even go there. My opinion is irrelevant on the validity of that possibility. But what struck me was it seemed that Miles took the conversation away from what is provable, what is on the ground, something we can sink our teeth into, the child trafficking, the human trafficking, the child abuse networks. And Miles is out there pointing fingers at Max didn't necessarily finger Michael Aquino directly. He actually would refer you to Douglas Dietrich, who knows more about it. But it bothered me that Miles took the conversation away from the occult, away from these satanic, creepy cultist bastards who are running our military, running our government, who are engaged in the disgusting things that they do to humans and children. And he sent it into the realm of the foo-foo, which is completely unprovable in any way. And even, I don't know if it's provable or not, but regardless, there's nothing anybody can do about it. If it was about soul ransoming, what do we do about that? Nothing. I can't imagine anybody doing anything about. But if the conversation stays focused on very real, tangible people alive today involved in this satanic whatever that's involved in government, military, and child trafficking, then we can sink our teeth into that. We can do something about that. Okay.
So whether or not something is something that we can sink our teeth into or not, is really, it is whatever it is. So when it comes to Colonel Michael Aquino, here's what I say, and here's what I understand. Trying to look at the situation objectively, I've looked at the data, and my assessment, I even appeared on a show related to Max Spiers' passing with Catherine Hart on the Revolution Radio. I think it's where it goes on. Catherine Joan Hart, and she's
that the interview that Sarah was referring to?
It might have been. It might have been. And what I can really assess about it is that in that interview, I started talking about Michael Aquino, and I threw Michael Aquino under the bus like many people do. Subsequent to that interview, I started to double back and do a little bit more research. And here's the deal. Michael Aquino is a complicated, controversial person, okay? Having said that, if we're talking about the passing of Max Spiers and the allegations against Michael Aquino, what I think we're in a risk of is repeating a pattern that we lived through during the 80s called the Satanic Panic. During the early 80s, I remember when I was growing up, I was born in 1975, that there was all this fear of these satanic cults, and they were doing these things where they were having women that they were using as breeders. And you had books come out, like books like Michelle Remembers, or books like written by Kathy O'Brien, talking about these various mind control things, these MK Ultra programs, these satanic programs. I'm not saying that rich and powerful people don't turn perverted. They do. If you're a student of world history, you know that people that go to rise to positions of strength and power invariably become jaded and invariably turn to the darkness when it comes to their peccadillos and predilections. It just seems to be something that happens. Having said that, when it comes to Michael Aquino, look, he was accused of certain specific things during the 80s. Investigations occurred, and he was acquitted. You know what I mean? He's never been, put in jail, and he's never been, arrested or tried or convicted of abusing anybody. And when I'm sitting there looking at Michael Aquino, I got to tell you something. I'm a person who I've looked at the work of Anton LaVey. I've looked at the work of Michael Aquino. I've looked at the work of Aleister Crowley. I'm being honest, even though knowing that naming these people, many people in your audience might turn to me and say, oh, CW Chanter is left-hand path. He's darkness. He's perverted by demoniac fixations and satanic agendas. F this guy. That's an assessment that people can make, and all I can do is to try and be integrated and honest, is to be honest with people. So you could say, if a person is going to think that I'm objectionable, I want them to know what about me is objectionable to them so that they know it. I don't want to confuse anybody. I don't want to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. So where I stand from and where I come to it is basically saying is that a lot of the allegations of, Douglas Dietrich is a fascinating individual. I think he's a very interesting guy. I think his assessment and his take on politics and conspiracy is completely wrong-sided. I think he's just kind of nuts when it comes to the conclusions that he draws and the factual allegations that he makes. That Japan won World War II, you know what I mean? Douglas Dietrich is a complicated individual with a complicated agenda. And Michael Aquino is a complicated individual with a complicated agenda. And I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't hang out with Michael Aquino. I've never met the dude. So I can't tell you what he does or doesn't do, what he did or didn't do. But all I can tell you is that when we talk about this, or when you were talking about the debate, what I really want to bring home for you is this, is having studied Miles Johnston and having studied Kerry Cassidy, honestly, getting into a debate about who detracted from the conversation or who took the conversation in a different direction is like discussing who's a bigger sick weirdo, Hillary Clinton or Henry Kissinger. It's good luck. You know what I mean? Both these people have an agenda, and both these people are involved. Kerry Cassidy and Miles Johnston are involved in a profit-generating system. This is a corporate media. It may be an underground, it may be alternative, but just like craft fairs have politics and agendas, just like coffee clutches have politics and agendas. Babies, brothers and sisters, believe you me, Kerry Cassidy is an agenda, and the Kerry Cassidy agenda is make sure that Project Camelot keeps on going, because Project Camelot pays for her lifestyle. Miles Johnston, the Basis Project is a for-profit organization. They make money when people tune in. They make money when there's an exciting story. They make money when there's a story to push. And when there's not a story to push, there's problems.
Yeah.
And so really, when it comes down to it, and unfortunately, it's interesting that some of the videos that I took down probably need to go back up, because even though I might think that I sound like a total jerk and dickhead when I was making those videos, that I'm probably better off making a video, or sometimes truth needs to be spoken to power, and you need to say things that are going to piss people off, even if it means that you don't get called up for the interviews. You mentioned the interview that I did with Cara St. Louis. At that time, believe you me, there were plenty of people who were reaching out to me and letting me know that if I just changed my style just a little, maybe I could get an interview with Corey Goode. If I would just change my style just a little, they could talk to somebody who knows somebody at Guy MTV. Maybe I could have a show. If I just would do this, don't you know how many people I could meet on Spreaker? Don't you know if I just did this or did that, or help this guy or help this gal, that it would help things or change things? And, it's tough. It's tough to fight the good fight, but you realize, son, at the end of the day, all you're going to do when you sell out is you just get another Glenn Beck program out there. It's just another Alex Jones. It's just another Basis Project. It's just another Project Camelot. Here's the latest, contactee who's going to tell you a whole bunch of unsubstantiated bullshit about life on Mars, that if you want there to be life on Mars, you're just going to sop up like with a spoon. Right. You know what I mean?
And now a word from our sponsors.
Exactly. Now Coast to Coast AM.
I'll drink to that.
They talked to Coast AM, one of the beginner, the starters, the people that turned this into a profit-making agenda. And believe you me, now Ancient Aliens, the History Channel is making moves with that. They've got books out now. They're the Ancient Alien conferences, Alien Con, with your new corporate sponsors and the crystal skulls, and it just feels a little bit different than the mom and pop new age crystal healers that used to get together and book a Holiday Inn for the weekend for them and their friends to get together and talk about things that may or may not have ever been. But, it's different than when the corporate sponsors come in and start, doing things for their own agenda. And don't worry, guys. It's just been announced that Corey Goode is going to be on Ancient Aliens.
Oh, really?
Oh, dear.
I haven't heard that one.
Absolutely. He's going to be on Ancient Aliens. And, look, that was just, that was par for the course. That's where it comes down to. And don't worry, because Corey Goode is now making a graphic novel for the kids, right?
Oh,
there's nothing scary about that, right? That's a perfectly acceptable way for people to learn about disclosure.
Okay, well.
And it is what it is.
Corey Goode has certainly made the rounds. He's all over Coast to Coast. He's all over Jimmy Church.
Oh, yeah.
The two biggest, mainstream, if any alternative show were to go mainstream, it would be either one of those two.
Right.
So I see now Corey Goode's on Ancient Aliens. So, okay, he's hit the big time. Now he's selling books. Okay. Yeah, you make a very salient point there. So
just know this, Jimmy Church is wholly involved in the David Wilcock Corey Goode program. If I'm lying, I'm effing dying. May they rise from their graves and sue me, right? Sue my ass for spreading lies and disinformation. Jimmy Church is involved in the profit-making operation that is David Wilcock's and Corey Goode's Sphere Being Alliance. Really? And if you don't want to believe me, look at his statements during the Conscious Life Expo when he introduced Corey Goode. He tours the country with Corey Goode and David Wilcock. It's all in. The fix is in. The fix is in, babies, brothers and sisters.
Oh,
yeah, they give you they're the types that just, they give you the 90% truth and then they spoil it or they miss out the rest, right?
Oh, and the truth that they give you is nothing that's anything new.
The truth they give you is pablum. Forget about the research of Stanton Friedman or Richard Dolan. That stuff is dry. It's erudite. It's hard to understand. It's boring. It's history lessons and chemistry. Who wants that stuff when you can have Corey Good just tell you that the Sphere Being Alliance, the Blue Avians, right, are parked just at that and people report. See, here's the thing. As a New Ager, I think that there is an interesting value in seeing crazy hippie weirdos close their eyes amongst a group of people and start to say fantastical things like, I am now in contact with the Andromedan Council of Uruguay.
And
they're
telling
me, Bashir, yeah, there's a value, just like there's a value to the Sunday preacher saying things that may or may not be true, but they may have value to the particular people in the pews who are there for a particular reason, who just need to know that they're going to go to heaven. Okay. If they're wrong, they're wrong. If it's lies and it's BS, it's lies and it's BS. Sometimes people need lies and BS, for better or for worse. And so, but where it comes to people like Corey Good, and where it's different than a guy like Bashar, is that you can say, and if you get the information from Bashar, you can know and understand and realize, okay, but I don't need to get too freaked out or scared by it, because it's a dude with his eyes closed in a room full of other hippy dippies, right? But when you have Corey Good who's saying things like, they're not saying that it's channeled information. They're saying these are real life experiences. The Blue Sphere Alliance are doing this. They're going to knock down the cabal. There's going to be arrests. Trump is involved this way.
Bottom line is you still have to take his word for it.
Right. And it's, and I tell people, I go, look, the allegation that they're going to make is that my reality worldview is not permeable enough, that I'm just too close-minded to realize that Corey Good is telling the truth. And I sit there and I say to people, I go, look, at some point, I just have to say to myself that if there are super advanced alien civilizations, that they are on some level logical and rational. And if they were on some level logical or rational, then they wouldn't do things like say, the ultimate way that we can get our agenda of world peace out there is by telling it to one dude with zero credibility and then throwing him out there and getting him associated with David Wilcock. Do you know what I mean? Like, just, and the part of the reason that I wanted to feel like throwing my channel away and chucking it all in is because you sit there and you say to these people, dude, ask yourself these fundamental questions.
Right.
And the people that have their minds open and are skeptical about this stuff say, awesome, CW Chanter, you're great. And for every one of those, there's 99 people going, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. You're just jealous because the Sphere Being Alliance chose Corey except you. He's a real American hero and you're just some sort of jerk. You know what I mean? I mean, you'll see these people thank him at these conferences, and they'll well up as if they're talking to a Vietnam vet, as if they're talking to some guy who's really been in the dirt and dealt with some shit. And they'll say to him, thank you for all that you're doing for us and for the people and for the next generations and for ascension. And the person sits there and goes, oh, yes, thank you. But, but at the end of the day, we've been through this before, people. Another New Age Messiah telling you. And at the end of the day, I got no problem with the message that Corey Good is essentially spreading, because it's essentially, it's the oldest game of the book. It's called Christ consciousness. You may have heard of it. If you're from the East, you call it Buddha consciousness, right? Be good to other people. Don't be of service to yourself. Be of service to other people. If we all just got along and helped each other and worked with each other instead of fighting with each other, the world would be like a paradise. Heaven would literally be on earth. Don't you realize that that's what we're supposed to do, right? And that's it. And who told you it? The Palladians. The Andromedans have told me. They've come to me with a secret special mission and message for the people of Earth. Be excellent to each other. You know what I mean? God bless. I mean, you know what I mean? God bless. God bless.
Well, I got my message from Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wild Stallions. Still, listen, meanwhile, and then you talk about people's fixation with fantasy. You have people out here on YouTube and the internet that will identify themselves as literal Jedi masters, right? People who will talk about the similarion of J.R.R. Tolkien as if it's an actual wholly documented book.
Isn't that what Max Spiers was about? I mean, he's supposed to be the super soldier. He's not a Captain America super soldier where he can run fast and take a punch. He's a super soldier who supposedly can travel the astral plane. Hop and skip around through time, communicate with people in other realms. I mean, that's the super soldier that him and his girl Sarah were supposed to be. Again, this is completely unverifiable, right?
Right.
So it just goes back into the realm of the foo-foo. It goes back into the realm of telling people what they want to hear. They paid for their ticket for the conference. They left feeling good, so all is well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And the point is this: is that what I basically tried to say is to these people is, look, you know, it's the proverbial turd in the punch bowl. If anyone remembers, there was a documentary movie, a short documentary movie, about an hour long, made about David Icke. It was probably came out in maybe say 2002, 2005, somewhere within that region. But in that documentary, that short little documentary piece, they have Alex Jones talking about David Icke, and Alex Jones rips into David Icke, and he refers to him as the proverbial turd in the punch bowl.
That's right.
That Alex Jones is out here trying to expose people to the real truth about the real cabal, the real Illuminati, the real powers that be, the machinations in government, the real conspiracies, the real truth about JFK, the real truth about the Agenda 21, what have you. And you have a guy like David Icke coming out here talking about reptilian shapeshifters from the moon.
He's doing a Miles Johnson.
Right. But then what happens is that the minute David Icke becomes fucking huge, now Alex Jones interviews him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Alex Jones' statements about Sandy Hook, all of a sudden Alex Jones, everyone has the things that they can be addressed about and things that they can be talked about. And I don't begrudge Alex Jones his success. But what Alex Jones needs to realize is that you can't say something on day one on camera and then on day 66 deny it. Uh-huh. We all know that Alex Jones came out and said that.
Joe Rogan did that too when it came to that moon landing. First he said it was completely fake, and then a couple of years later he's completely 180 on it and says, no, it was real.
The great thing
it's just whatever fits
their
latest agenda. They're profit driven, like you said.
Or how about this? Joe Rogan will have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Sam Harris on his show. I love Joe Rogan. I love the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm tuned in. I'm a subscriber. The best for me, for my money, for radio entertainment, which I think is what it essentially is. He is the modern Howard Stern. I feel about him the way I used to feel about Howard Stern back in the day. It is just compelling listening. Whether he's interviewing the dog catcher or whether he's interviewing Donald Trump, Joe Rogan interviews, they're just fascinating. They're full of life. They're full of frisson. He asks interesting questions. He's provocative. He gets good information out of people. Having said that, it's very obvious to me that Joe Rogan asks different questions and presents himself in a different way depending on the people that he interviews. So, for example, everybody knows that Joe Rogan used to be a denier of the moon landing. He used to think that the moon landing was a hoax. Joe Rogan also is a fan of the work of Zecharia Sitchin, believing in things like the Anunnaki and genetic manipulation of the Homo sapiens to create modern man, whatever the case may be. He never brings those points up when he's talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson or Sam Harris. He would never occur to him to turn to Sam Harris and say, oh, no, by the way, Mr. Atheist Superman, did you know that I believe in the Anunnaki and the work of Zecharia Sitchin? He never would bring that up. And it's a similar thing to things like Alex Jones of saying to people like, look, if you believe something in your heart of hearts on day 1, day 2, or day 3, how are you going to tell me that you're going to bring them up on day 4, 5, and 6? Wouldn't you want to know what Sam Harris thinks about your take on the Anunnaki? Don't you think that would be much more interesting than asking friggin' Eddie Bravo, who thinks every single wild conspiracy theory out there?
Yeah, no kidding.
But more to the point of Alex Jones is that we know this. Here's what we can say, whether he's right or he's wrong. Alex Jones at one point in time said that nothing happened at Sandy Hook, that no children died. He fucking said that. He said it. Yep. He said it. He said it. He said it. and yet he's going to come out here and act like he didn't say it. You can't do that, dude.
Right.
Unless you're playing a political game.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways.
Unless
you can't unsee or unlearn anything.
Right. So you could say, I changed my mind. He can say, I used to think this about Pizzagate or this or the research, and then I came to this other assessment.
Behind your change of opinion.
But you'd want to let us know why it is and take us through the transformation and change, and it could be a learning experience for everybody, other than the classic Alex Jones approach, which is just, I've got the bully pulpit. I've got the power. People are tuning to Alex Jones. People listen to me. They don't listen to you. So no matter how many videos you make talking about me being debunked, I'm just going to knock you out with my 1-2 punch of just calling you a liar. You know what I mean? Or just bringing up another story about how someone else, presented him in a different light. It is what it is. But the audience needs to stay tuned and stay involved and realize none of these people are your friends. If you're tuned into Alex Jones, it shouldn't be because you're an Alex Jones fan. It should be because you're trying to expose yourself to new information. You're trying to think about that information. You're trying to learn, and you're not just trying to be involved in team politics, because that's what unfortunately can happen so much. Oh, those goddamn SJWs, oh, these alt-righters, and these guys, and then they're out of their line, and they're totally crazy. If you think that the people that disagree with you politically are all morons, that are just so stupid and drug-addled, that's how they got to disagree with the mighty you that is you, you're not thinking correctly. Everybody's fallible, and nobody has the complete story. We all have little pieces that we're trying to put together. We're all trying to figure it out. We got to work together. And working together doesn't mean that pointing to everybody that has an alternative worldview than us and saying that they should burn in hell or they should die. But that's what's happening today. There's more and more fratricide, more and more infighting, more and more debates, more and more fighting. But that sells.
Excellent. Okay. Anybody want to add to that before I change the subject again?
Well, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that it's fascinating to hear the thought processes. That's all. Have at it, Ian.
Well, I like when the leftists, they get called out on things, right? Speaking of, just because they don't have the same opinion politically as you, they're not, total retards or something. But when they have no arguments, when they just follow along with what the narrative of the day is, right? And they can't even give you an example of why they think that way. That's where there's a really big problem to me, right? And that's I find a lot of the leftists are like that. Like, I know a guy who said, "Oh, well, Trump will be impeached, within 3 or 4 months," right? And I said, "Well, for what?" And he didn't answer me, right? The simple fact is he can't get impeached anyway because you need the House of Representatives to impeach a president. And who owns the House of Representatives? The Republicans. So it won't happen, right? But the simple fact is they don't have a counter argument to what they're saying.
Well, so what can end up happening?
What bugs me, that it's the fake news that they're listening to and reading, and they're looking up to this fake news thinking it's real, even though they've been lied to. How many times and proven you've been lied to? You know what I mean? So,
right. So
really,
where we find ourselves, where we find ourselves now, the real risk is that on the media, on the mainstream media and the alternative media, there are various players, and various people are doing good work, and various people have got problems in their game. And so what can end up happening, and I think that what we need to be very wary of is this, that we're being sold a narrative. On the left, we're being sold a narrative, and on the right, we're being sold a narrative. And on the right, we're being sold the narrative that these left-leaning SJW dummies, they have no arguments. They don't even know what they're debating or why they're debating it for. They want to have transgendered bathrooms to beat the band. They want the 50-year-old man to be able to say he's a 5-year-old girl and have that be an accepted lifestyle choice. It's all nuts. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And on the left, we're being told, oh, these right-wing people, they're all prejudiced Nazis. They're all, oh my God, they're they're the white male patriarchy, feeling the death of Nels or this, or they're the oligarchy, or they've got the money, or they're doing this, and what we need to realize is that when we come to, as best as we can, when we come to new social interactions with new people, is to avoid the temptation to put them into a pre-existing box, right?
Exactly.
And to say we have to deal with this person's individual thoughts and agenda on their own terms. And also know and understand this. It's so confusing. But believe you me, if you pay attention to the Alex Jones channel, they do a thing on the Alex Jones channel that it's the exact same thing that they do on the left-wing channels, whether it be Sam Cedar on the Majority Report or whether it be the Young Turks. You go to a gathering of people that you don't like. If you're the Young Turks, you go to a gathering of Trump supporters. If you're the Alex Jones channel, you go to the Women's March meeting, right? And you interview hundreds of people. And then you produce a video that just has the dumbest of the dumb. Believe you me, if you think that there's not footage in the Alex Jones locker room of the on the street reporter, whether he's Mark Knight or whomever, or Macaboob or whoever, on there, interviewing people that who have nuanced opinions about why they don't like Trump, or why they think that Trump is going to get impeached, or why they think that Trump is anti-woman. You're fooling yourselves. There's tons of those interviews, but those interviews never make it. They just want to have the interviews with the person that goes, Donald Trump, yeah, he's racist because he's like a white man, first of all. And they do the exact same thing on the left when they go to the Trump supporters. Believe you me, know for a fact that there's plenty of hours of interviews on the cutting room floor of the Young Turks broadcast of people with intelligent, reasonable opinions of why, despite the fact that Donald Trump is a complicated, polarizing individual, they're going to vote for him rather than Hillary Clinton. But that never gets on there. All that's going to get on there is the guy in the Confederate flag T-shirt with the beer cozy going, Donald Trump, I like him because, Muslims. You can't trust Muslims. Right? That's the guy that's going to get on that broadcast. Right?
That's right.
Nuance goes out the window. And the person on the left, you can discount their opinion because they're just a useless SJW. And the person on the right, you can discount their opinion because they're an alt-righter. They're a neo-Nazi. They're a fascist. Whatever the F that means, which nobody knows what it means. You know what it means? And so what we have to do is we have to keep our communication lines open. And we have to talk to people as individuals, especially if, what are we trying to do? Are you trying to win a fight? Are you trying to win the debate? Or are you trying to institute cultural change? Because if you're going to try and institute cultural change, fighting's not going to do it. The only thing that does it is saying, okay, hold on, my brother. Listen, I hear you. Don't you understand that what I'm saying is this, and the reason I'm saying it is that? And you parse it through. And at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing. We want freedom for ourselves. We want freedom and prosperity for our children, right? We want life to be good. We don't want to mess with other people, and we don't want other people messing with us. And it's all about how you get there. And the conservative thinks that you get there by going back to the lessons of the past and respecting tradition and saying to yourself, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's okay. And we should go back, and not all change is progress. And if you're on the liberal side or the progressive side, you're saying we got to get rid of these old institutions. We got to grow. We got to change. We got to change with the times. We got to right wrongs. We got to take things that aren't good and change them to good. And if you ask the conservative why he's doing what he's doing, or the liberal why she's doing what she's doing, they're probably going to say the exact same thing. They're trying to right wrongs and make the world a better place for everybody.
Right.
Yep.
CW Chanter for president. All right, there we go. Solving problems.
All right. Well, we got about we got maybe 20 minutes left before we hit the top of the third hour here. I want to get to the subject that might be a little bit controversial on your part. You seem to be the creator and or founder of your own I dare say religion.
You dare say correctly. Absolutely.
Okay. So, okay, since that's a correct assessment, we can now safely call it a religion.
Sure. Sure.
We actually had a little bit of a fun banter with an English chap who is a friend of ours, friend of the show. We usually do a weekend chat with him. And we were discussing you as an upcoming guest. And he put forward the question, what, and now I see, at least I have a basic understanding of what this is about. I'll let you go ahead and explain it in your own words. But the question put forward by our friend Dominic, who his YouTube channel is The Conscientious Objector, he posited, what is the fundamental deity? Doesn't a religion require a fundamental deity?
Personally, I don't think that it does. And basically, what Commonwealth chanting is it is a religion. When I was going through my spiritual journey, everyone has a spiritual journey, whether they engage with that or not. Part of being alive on planet Earth as a human being is to have this spiritual journey, to look at things and to try and figure out what's right and what's wrong, and to know and understand that there's certain things that are invisible. Truth, justice, we can define these terms, we can know and understand why we think that they're laudable, but they're philosophical, they're of the mind. They're not present in our reality, they're only present in our minds. And going through life is that I'd gone through several phases in my life, and one of the phases that I ended up going through was an atheistic phase, where I had looked at the situation honestly and absolutely assessed that the teachings of the various world's religions were just completely bunko. They were just predicated upon a lie that wasn't true and therefore should be thrown away, and it just is what it is. We're biological animals on planet Earth. That's how it goes. That had a devastating effect on my personal happiness and my life. With nothing to believe in, I became a nihilistic, libertine. I thought that the agenda of life was to consume as much alcohol and intoxicants as you could, have as much fun as you can, and one day you'll be dead and nothing will have changed. It is what it is. Politics, religion, culture, bleh. We're all just people here on planet Earth, and when you're dead, and that's nothing, and you're over. And that was killing me. And so part of my spiritual journey involved going back and looking at the various religious institutions that I was involved in and making an assessment to say that even though none of those religions that I was involved in were a perfect fit, there were problems that made me say that I can't sign up for this 100%. I can't say this is what I believe absolutely without feeling that there's a compromise occurring within. I said to myself, look, there might be some way to tweak the system to make it work. And so basically what I looked at religion. I've been studying religions my entire life. It was something I was always fascinated with. And I looked at it and I said, is there a way that we can tweak the system? Is there a way that we can solve the problems inherent with spirituality or organized religion, and just get the good and get as little of the bad as possible? So I came up with a system called Commonwealth Chanting that works for me. I had to, for my own personal life, realize that I needed to have a religion. I did. That was a personal assessment that I made, that I needed to have a set of strictures, guidelines, requirements, and behaviors that I was going to sign up to and commit to in order to have a successful lifestyle and not to just be adrift. People can assess that situation with their own minds and make their own conclusions about whether what I did was good or a bad thing. Some people will say I'm living in denial. Some people will say, hey, as long as you're living a more positive lifestyle, forget the denial, forget all those things. You're doing the best you can do. You're doing good. So for me, I came up with this thing called Commonwealth Chanting, and it was a religion for me. I needed to figure out, so I wasn't just adrift and asleep at the wheel. I needed to have a map. I needed to have directions, even if it was a map that I picked myself, and even if it was an abstract location that I had picked. You know what I mean? I'm going to go to Bangladesh. whatever. Why go to Bangladesh? It's because it's where I decided I was going to go. I'm going there. I'm committing to go to this journey, to do this thing. And so that's basically what happened. And having come up with my own religion, for me, I looked at it and said, this is transportable. And just like it worked for me and may have been the best fit or may be the best fit for me, there may be other individuals in the world who it may be the exact same thing. It just might work for them. And so I put it out there. I have no agenda with it. If I get one convert, if I get 0 converts, it's really the same at the end for me, because really the whole point of Commonwealth Chanting for me, primarily, it's for me. Do you know what I mean? Just like the sponsor at AA that takes on a sponsee, they may look like they're at service, but the person that they're primarily at service for is them. Why are they doing it? They're doing this activity of being good, of helping the newcomer, not just to help the newcomer, not just out of the goodness of their heart, but because they believe that behavior is integral into a total system of behavior and a total worldview that's going to get them from point A to point B without feeling the need to have a drink, you know? So for me, basically what I say is that Commonwealth Chanting is a religion. I did found it. I did formulate it. I tried to do my best to de-weaponize it, meaning that the problems that people had identified and that I had self-identified in organized religion were addressed. You know, it's not a top-down philosophy. No one tells you what to believe. It's basically what I consider it as, I try to describe it as an operating system. You know what I mean? Where people of disparate philosophical, spiritual, and religious points of view can come together and be involved in a group organized religion and in a group practice, because there are benefits of group organization and group religious practice. The building of a secondary community that is smaller than government, but bigger than the village community. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's my assessment based on my analysis of the world as I lived through it. And that's where we came to, and that's where I'm at. And believe you me, I'm very much aware of the fact that we live in a day in a society where people would generally say, when they're talking about things like organized religion, do we need a new one? Most people seem to be in the process of saying we need to deconstruct these religions and get rid of this stuff and graduate beyond religion. And here's this guy. And all I can do is to tell people, honestly, I understand and get it why people say, I'm not spiritual, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. For me, that just became an excuse, because as long as I was calling myself spiritual and not religious, well, spiritual is whatever, you know, catch as catch can. You know what I mean? Today I'm a vegetarian. Tomorrow I'm excusing myself from eating meat because, hey, life is tough. You know, today I'm a Shiva worshiping libertine, smoking dope and this and the other thing, and the next day I'm an ascetic who's, you know, putting those things aside, and you go, whoa, 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 whoa. And I said to myself personally, just for myself, I needed to have something a little bit more concrete where I sat down, so from day to day I could say, did I do what I said I was going to do today, or did I not do what I said I was going to do today? And don't have any excuses about it, and just understand it is what it is. And if you're trying to run a marathon, you need to get out there and exercise. You know what I mean?
So it sounds more like a personal commitment or a personal dedication.
Yeah, I mean,
rather than, I mean, because I checked out some of your videos where you discuss the principles of your Commonwealth Chanting, and so I mean, you feel free to let us or anybody who's listening know a little more detail about what it entails.
Right.
From what I gather, it doesn't sound like anything that would actually be much of an organized. Rather than, now I did catch one of your vlogs where you described that it would be beneficial for some people to find each other, gather together in groups, and engage in the activity of what you describe as this Commonwealth Chanting. So
right.
From what you've laid out so far, it really sounds more like a commitment to your own personal growth, your own I'm sorry.
Well, Did you mention
No,
you
no.
mentioned the word ascension before in one of your interviews with somebody I was listening to, right?
Right.
What does ascension mean to you? Like, what is that?
Well,
What
it's
does it really mean
essentially,
to you?
yeah. So when we're dealing with this new age diaspora, this new age community, there's certain words that are bandied about, and they come to have an understanding, and they can have personal meaning, or they can just be taken as being definable. And ascension is this principle, or this concept that we are all on a journey, and we're headed from point A to point B. That we're going to ascend to some higher level, some level of gnosis, some level of enlightenment, some level of understanding. That's not just going to happen on an individual level of a guy sitting in a cave in Tibet gaining enlightenment, but that there's going to be some sort of universal change.
Like a collective consciousness.
The change of the collective consciousness, where we're all going to ascend and move beyond, and it's going to be this thing called ascension. A lot of people thought that was going to happen in 2012, right? The Mayan calendar was going to come loop back around to zero, and we're all going to turn to beings of pure light and energy, and then forget about it. And it's all going to forget about getting a job. You don't need to worry about it. And to many people, ascension, I argue to people that people can treat ascension like the second coming of Christ. There are certain people that are kind of living their life on the sidelines because they are banking on, or they've come to accept the belief that a universal, magnificent change is going to happen inevitably within their lifetime. So what's the point of getting a college degree? What's the point of getting a job when we're all going to turn into beings of pure light in the year 2000, right? Well, okay. The year 2000 comes and goes. The year 2012 comes and goes. And you say to people, hey, just like waiting around for Jesus Christ, if you wait around for ascension, you might be waiting around for all of your days. You know? So when it comes down to me and Commonwealth chanting and the religion, what I tell people is that, no, I mean, the notion is that there will be engendered actual communities of Commonwealth chanters who get together and organize practices and group practices. And why would that be a good thing? It's because my personal assessment is this, is that we live in a society where people have it very, very good. Even at our worst, we live in a first world society, right? And there's a lot of people that are banking on that. But the fact of the matter is that tomorrow is not guaranteed to nobody. The fact that I've got clean drinking water today within easy access doesn't mean that I'm going to have easy access to clean drinking water tomorrow. Just because I have the ability to put gas in my car or do these simple agendas and just live normal life doesn't mean that tomorrow I might wake up in a system where these systems and infrastructures that I took for granted are no longer present. And when push comes to shove and you find yourself in that position, you're going to need people to hang out with, and you're going to need people to hang tough with. And the example I use all the time is this, is I go, whether or not Joseph Smith truly received the message from the angel Moroni in the forest of Palmyra, New York, back in the day, doesn't change the fact that if the U.S. government closes shop tomorrow, Salt Lake City's lights are going to stay on. Right. Salt Lake City, Utah is prepared, and they can go the distance. The average New Ager can't do that. The average crystal gazer, candle burner, Wiccan, witch, druid, gay shaman, when push comes to shove, they're going to find themselves with an external support system of zero. So I tell people that even if it's in your normal everyday life, everyone's going to face an apocalypse one day because everyone's going to die. Aaron, Ian, Amy, CW, one day we are going to look up at the doctors and the nurses, God willing, and we're going to say, is this it? Am I dying? Is this truly the final chapter? And the voices from around us, the looks of the eyes of our children and our parents are going to look at us, and they're going to tell us inevitably, baby, you're dying. You know, you're not working on getting out of this hospital bed. We're going to put the sheet over. You're going out of this hospital bed, but you're going out feet first, baby. You know what I mean? And so everybody's going to face that apocalypse one day. And so I tell people, I go, look, there's a lot of people, if they were to look around and say to themselves about their own spiritual truths, their own spiritual knowledge, their own spiritual understanding of what life really is about, that they got to know that if they die in their current state of affairs, they're going to be buried under a different person's agenda and under a different person's titles and invocations and words. And what I tell people about Commonwealth chanting is that you'd want there to exist a system where you could die under your terms, or whether the fit really hits the sham, as I predict that it might very well, and the infrastructure breaks down and there is no government to rely upon, you're going to want to be able to have a community of people around you that you can rely upon. Right. And internet community doesn't do it. I've
brought that up on many occasions.
This is an opiate. It makes you think that you're friends with people. It makes you think that you're having communication interactions with people.
Well, that much is true. Yeah. I mean, certainly on the surface, that much is true. We're having an interaction here. I'm certainly friends with Ian and Amy and a lot of people in the chat.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And that's the issue. We're so distant. He's in Atlanta. I'm in like Canada.
Yeah, and I'm out on Long Island, and it's like.
And I've made the point in the past that, you know, when the shit does hit the fan, or when the knock comes at the door, when the boot kicks your door in at 2 a.m., where the hell is Ian going to be? He's going to be 3,000 miles away. He's not going to do me any good. As close as we are, that he's just not going to be there. So, I mean, you make another salient point there. You know, people these days, certainly they live close, you know, in close proximity to a lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods. And how many neighbors do you actually know? How many people by their first name do you actually know? When was the last time you were inside your neighbor's house, having a cup of tea, smoking a joint, having some coffee or a beer? So
I wish I was smoking. Oh, jeez. Don't bring that up in my presence ever again.
I was in my neighbor's house, so just.
Well,
but yeah, I know what you're saying.
I guess I'm a little bit lucky. I'm in a decent neighborhood, and most of the people in this neighborhood know each other by their first name. We're a little bit isolated.
Fake news, right? It's all built on the fake narratives that we're in constant threat of crazy gunmen and jihadi terrorists running around all over the place. That's why people are afraid to, you know, and the crime rate. Blame that too, you know. But
we're taught to fear each other. We're taught to be afraid of everyone. Be afraid of black people. Be afraid of bald people. Be afraid of people with tattoos. Be afraid of people with goatees. Be afraid of people with turbans on their head.
You know, unless you have a personal experience one-on-one with a racial group of people or something, right? Then all you ever get is what the media tells you, right?
So, I mean, if you're not paying attention and you're just wandering your way through life, it's no wonder that so many people live in such tight communities and don't interact with each other. They're afraid of each other. They're afraid to expose themselves to strangers. They're afraid of just a million different reasons people are afraid to actually say hi to their fucking neighbor.
Right. It's an old joke, and you said it well. It's like, you know, we may know what's going on with the price of oil in Somalia, but do we know our neighbor's name from across the hallway? And these are very good points that need to be brought up. And there's a lot of people. What seems to be is this constant. It's like the Occupy movement. There seems to be a problem with our community where people know that they need to bust through to a complete lifestyle change, whether it's
they don't have the tools to do it though.
Yeah, it's very tough because we can connect to all these thousands of people through the internet, but it's very I tell people all the time. I go on the internet. I've got my own individual religious beliefs. I got my own political beliefs, my own spiritual beliefs, my own way of assessing the world. I go onto YouTube and I get X number of subscribers or X number of people who want to consistently tune in and hear me say that. Believe you me, if I put on a sandwich board and went to the street corner and said the same thing, please, I'd be lucky if I got one individual who would be willing to speak to me. You know, so it's very tough, but I feel the need that we need to bust through there because it's going to happen. I have a very kind of inevitable take on it with the fall of Rome to say that the American Empire, you know, eventually, you know, when push comes to shove, nothing is forever. Everything, life is in transitions and changes. and we got to see where it goes. You know.
All right. Well, let me ask you your position on something real quick before we close this out. You know, there's a lot of talk about the end of the world, the apocalypse, right? The catastrophe that's to come. There's a million movies. There's tons of predictive programming. There's everybody and their brother online who would love to scare the shit out of you with the horrible thing that's going to happen. We all talk about it as the shit hitting the fan. Now, something that I brought up on several occasions, there's always been a percentage of the population throughout history, all the way throughout history, a small percentage that just says bullshit to the official story, no matter what time in history. Go all the way back to Rome, go all the way back to Egypt, go as far back as you want. There's always a small group of any population, let's say 5% or even less, that would automatically say, you're full of shit to anyone in power or any official story from any tribal leader or any form of government. Now, we have this thing we call the internet, which has grown that population to an exponential number. And I've said on many occasions that I believe very firmly that not only is the awakening happening, not just because what I engage on the internet, I see people on the street. I mean, people at my fucking cell phone store the other day were, next thing I know, within 5 minutes, we're all talking about conspiracies. A black young man and a white older woman. And all three of us are sitting around chatting about conspiracies at the cell phone store. So people are waking up like crazy, and certainly various levels. Now, my question is, the internet has grown our numbers. It's getting out of control. And I'm of the strong opinion that the elites, whoever they are, powers that shouldn't be, they're not going to allow this much longer. And I'm curious as to where you are on the idea, the concept, or perhaps even a timeline. A lot of people say economic collapse is going to happen this year. If you listen to Cliff High, he's going to say starting the middle of this month, lasting for 2 to 5 years. A lot of people making predictions. Just where are you on all this major world event, right? Depopulation event, something big. Where are you on the end of the world scenario?
Well, I mean, basically, my take on it is this: is that, you know, I look at a variety of economic factors, and my personal assessment comes down to a very simple analogy. I go, if the U.S. were a farmhouse with a mom and a dad and 2 children inside, that household has to make certain economic decisions regarding budgeting, financing, the use of credit, what have you. We live in a system where there's no way to look at creating the analogy between what's actually happening in U.S. economic events and what's happening overseas with the European Union's economy. There's no way to break that down to the farmhouse analogy to find a farmhouse that we think is going to work or be sustainable. There's just far too much credit. There's far too much fake money out there. There's too many ones and zeros masquerading as actual frozen energy, what we used to refer to as money, called the Babylonian banking system, call it whatever you have. The system is a magical system. It's built on a house of cards. It is imaginary, and just like the Wizard of Oz, say whatever you want about paying no attention to the man behind the screen. The man behind the screen is the actual thing. So whether or not it happens in the middle of March, all I know is this: is that I'm aware of the fact that there's always been guys like Cliff High, Greg Hunter, Ronald Schiff out here saying it's going to happen. The breakdown is going to happen. The breakdown is going to happen. I don't know when. All I know is that I bank on the inevitability that what goes up must come down, and that today's society of America being the hegemony and having total hegemony in the world and being the #1 world superpower and economic superpower, we can see the chinks in the armor, and we can see the cracks starting to develop. And so do I think it's going to be a total, complete breakdown of society forever and a day? Not necessarily. Do I think that people should prep and have a certain amount of potable water, medications, and food in their household to sustain them and theirs for a month, 2 months, should bad things happen? That's what I say. I say, hope for the best, plan for the worst. I don't know what's going to happen, but my assessment is that something's going to happen because too many intelligent people are pointing my consciousness in too many particular areas to say that everything's coochie crunch and it's all going to go fine. The biggest example I tell you this is that, like, I go from my commute from home to work used to be about an hour, and I would travel through several towns and small cities, and I'd be able to, and I can tell you that where there used to be every storefront was full and operational and going on all cylinders. I tell you that I passed by innumerable blocks where 2/3 of the storefronts are empty. Right?
Yeah.
2/3 of the storefronts are empty. It's looking like a ghost town in middle America, but I'm not in an area that used to rely on heavy manufacturing. I live in a very nice county in New Jersey where it was never about manufacturing. It was never about heavy industry. But I can tell you the notion that we're all going to be a quote unquote service industry, what are we going to do? All service each other for nothing? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
If Amy had her way.
Well, if Amy has her way, it's not that we would have to service anyone, but that we would want to get the social currency, the reputation, the thanks, the appreciation, the love, the lauds, the fame, the bragging rights, the self-satisfaction. That is what will motivate us. But, pardon me. We would not be required to input our energy in any way if we didn't need, if we didn't want to. We wouldn't earn much in social currency if we didn't do things to make the place better. But,
And listen, from your mouth to God's ears.
Fulfilling society where you'd become a better person by helping other people in that sense.
Exactly. You would earn social currency.
We keep Amy around for a reason. She's brilliant.
She's good. I love Amy too. And I tell me and Amy have had we've done a couple of things. We've had our debates, and Amy knows. And what I've said all the time is that it's not that I think that her worldview is not a beautiful worldview that I wouldn't vote for, wouldn't want to live in. Right. I just have certain questions about whether or not fundamentally human beings can engage and interact in this beautiful way without it all going bananas.
Her and I have gone round and round on
that. Let me ask you something. Do you know about stigmergy?
Stigmergy? No, I don't. I have to say.
Okay, stigmergy is what societies in nature all function by. It's autonomous individuals reacting to information they get, and based on a seed set of parameters, make choices. Even insects out prowling around, they see too many people prowling around for food, they think it's time to go in and see if they need help in the nursery or whatever. It's not like there's somebody telling them, okay, you do this, you do that.
It's a natural recognition of what needs to be done.
Exactly. And it's information flow based. Now, what we've got presently on our humanity, our human situation, is an artificial constriction in the form of people who are telling us what we can and cannot do. This is artificial. If we removed such an artificiality, our stigmergy would create a blossoming of humanity. It would just happen because most of us are not psychopaths. And the ones, except for the genetic ones, which are about 1%, the ones who choose psychopathic behavior consistently, the secondary psychopaths, they're really not that many either. But because they are that way, and most of us don't go positive because of our conditioning, because of our situation economically, because of various such things, our indoctrination, our conditioning, our the propaganda we are beset with. and so on and so forth. And if you watch, Aaron has a vid about psychopaths that I think brilliantly explains what the problem is when you have a society that is operated by psychopaths. It's not as beautiful a society as when you take the power away from the psychopaths and give it to the caring people, where we solve problems because we care, as opposed to passing laws because we said so.
Now, I've given this a whole lot of thought. Amy and I have been on and off having this conversation, and sometimes in the form of a debate. And I'm really got my head around it in a good way. And I fully understand that. I even have cleared up my own arguments in many cases because, well, I'll give you an example. One of the arguments is, well, what about the jobs that nobody wants to do? Well, for her first response is robots, but you can't always have a robot in every single situation. Sometimes you have to have a person to make certain decisions in real time with his eyeballs and with his fingers in his hands to get a certain job done. Has to happen. We just don't have robots crawling out of the woodwork to do every job, and certainly would take a long time to get certain things done.
Robots fixing robots.
Nevertheless. So I'm a logistics man because I'm a contractor by trade. So I'm always thinking about how to get things done step by step. And that's how my brain typically wants to work. So I put myself through that process. I imagine a scenario where you have a neighborhood or even a whole city. And the problem is that the plumbing is backed up because nobody wants to do the fucking plumbing. Right? There's a clog in the pipe. Nobody wants to climb down in the shit pipe just so they can be patted on the back. Do you know what I mean? Because Amy's always on about the social currency as being the major motivator for people to get shit done. Now, if I imagine the scenario where the toilet's backing up and, everybody's wallowing in shit, it's running down the streets, nobody can flush their toilet, everyone's crapping outside because you can't do it inside anymore. So I can imagine being the guy, because I'm partially that nature. I'm a doer, right? Contractor, problem solver. I would be one of those people who would bite the bullet, and not for everyone else and not for social currency, but for myself.
Yeah, self-satisfaction.
I would do it for myself so that I could flush my fucking toilet. If nobody else is going to do it, God damn it, fuck it. We're doing this, and I'm going to get to flush my toilet. And if all you get to flush your toilet, well, then fine. But I'm flushing my toilet. And this is what it takes. This is what it takes to get that done.
The thing is that we are naturally problem solvers.
Right. When certain problems arise, most people, it's hard for us to imagine now because we live in this society where so many people are so fucking lazy, and it's promoted in most of the media and in our culture, it's promoted this laziness, right? Suck on the government tit, get your check. You don't got to work, sit at home, pop out more babies, whatever, right? We have this whole culture, and including the younger millennial generation, which is gimme, you owe me. This whole culture where I don't have to work, you owe me. So it's hard for us to imagine now this scenario that Amy paints.
Yeah, that's exactly
with the mentality of the people we live with today.
I was going to say, it's like, we live in a society where we would love to think that everybody's going to rise to this natural, be drawn to this natural benevolence that Amy sees in people. And that's the beauty of Amy's philosophy, is that it paints the people in power are psychopaths, but the people on the ground are all sort of good guys and gals. But I gotta tell you, like, most people will just sit on a rock. It's like, this is why communism doesn't work. It's like, you can tell people that they all got to participate. Some people are going to participate. Some people are going to sit on their ass.
But that's the whole point of this system, is that nobody has to participate in any way that they don't want to. But there's an awful lot of things that people would do, whether they got a paycheck or not, as long as they had their needs met and they were comfortable.
Well, so that
things.
but if you have a situation where if people's needs were getting met and they were comfortable, would they feel the need and drive to go out and do those labors, those activities that would help keep the whole system going? Because I gotta tell you, for my point of view, given a system that would allow and protect people and give them resources to do whatever they want to do, are there going to be some people that are going to choose to be honey dippers and ditch diggers? Maybe, but for the most part,
you should be able to gain more community merit for the task itself. Like if you do a really crappy task, you should gain a lot of community points for that. So it's like the rich do the harder stuff and the not so rich do the easier stuff, right? It turns it upside down.
First and foremost, as long as people are comfortable, there is no problem. If there is a problem, they become uncomfortable, and yes, they will be motivated, like Aaron said.
The problem solvers will come out of the woodwork just to get it done for their own fucking
problem, to get them back into that comfort level. You bet.
Even if it's not such an altruistic endeavor, even it could be entirely selfish, like my explanation.
Absolutely. But people will solve problems when they are no longer comfortable. The problem, this is creating discomfort, I'm going to solve for it. And that is, believe me, I don't care how lazy a guy is. If he finds himself uncomfortable, he's going to work to fix that problem.
It's a beautiful system. It's really difficult to get your head around, but we're already well into our overtime, and I have one more question I want to throw at you, and it was based on something you had said a little while ago. You said, too many intelligent people are pointing my consciousness in a particular direction. And it was the question I asked you just a few minutes ago about your take on this end of the world, fear porn.
Right.
And you said, too many intelligent people are pointing my consciousness in a particular direction. Now, I've often said that at the bottom of every rabbit hole I've ever looked at, the answer is consciousness. There's one common denominator at the bottom of every conspiracy. And when you go as deep as you can ever possibly go, you start to see revelations that, there's consciousness again and again and again.
Right.
So you have mentioned previously that you have read and or studied the works of Anton LaVey, a little bit of Michael Aquino, and I think you also said Aleister Crowley.
Sure.
One of your podcasts, you've read and or studied into this concepts, their crafts, the things they said and written about. All right. So I'm going to assume you got your head pretty well around this concept of lesser magic. Yes?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So the statement you made, too many intelligent people pointed my consciousness in a particular direction. Now, when certain numbers of people, like you said, too many people, too many intelligent people who have our large audience base collectively. So in other words, we're all hearing this message. All of us out here, all these millions of consciousnesses focusing, being pointed in a particular direction. Is that to me, that is my best understanding of how lesser magic works. As the old saying goes, where attention goes, energy flows.
Yes. So if you define magic as making change occur in the world based upon one's will or desire, even if we look at a guy like Donald Trump, what we're knowing and understanding is that it's not so much what's real or not real, so much as the reality that you can get people to accept and understand. So if people produce information and news that is contrary to you or anti-you, it doesn't really matter whether it's true or not if you can neutralize it with a contrary story or a contrary buzzword or blow by. So I think I know what you're talking about with the sense of this, that if I look around, so there's the actual economic environment that we live in.
Well, let me just be a little bit more specific before you.
Sure, absolutely. Bring me in.
In terms of creating a scenario, in terms of bringing to manifest something that you want, you concentrated on it very hard and you thought about it for a long time, and you've motivated yourself to make certain steps in order to make that happen. And it happens, whether it be, get a better house, get a better job, all these different things that we as individuals can make manifest within our own lives to bring into being, to create something new. So if you're the powers that be, or you're a think tank working for the man, and you want a society to bring into being this, like I asked you earlier, this end of the world scenario, and this is where you threw that sentence that I wrote down about your consciousness was being pointed in a particular direction. So here we are, all of us, millions of people, with all of our consciousness being focused on this economic collapse, fucking asteroid's going to hit. Ed Dames is running around talking about the kill shot. The solar flare is going to kill us all. We've got the Georgia Guidestones. That shit's written in stone. We know they want depopulation to some extent. So, with the idea that the elites want to bring in this thing into manifest, this end of the world scenario, this depopulation, one world order, whatever the fuck they want. And we have all these gurus out there pointing our consciousnesses in a particular direction. In order to bring that into being, more people focused on it is going to help it come to fruition, to make manifest. Is that lesser magic? Is this what I understand lesser magic and how it works?
Well, it certainly it could be, and I'm not trying to dodge it. I'm honestly trying to engage with your question honestly. But what I would say is this: is that for me, my takeaway from the logic and the rationale that underlines your question is whether or not it works. So, for example, I mean, if it truly works, then there might be something there. But my take on
gaslighting works, and that's just one on one. And I mean,
here's what. Let me throw this out there. Here's a contrary argument. The powers that be don't want an economic collapse. The powers that be want people to think and believe and understand that everything's fine, the economy's growing, the gross domestic product is increasing. Eurasia has always been at war with East Asia, you know what I mean? And this is the way it goes. And what they would really want to do is prevent these things. So the Georgia Guidestones and all these things is like, there can be things that are present that may indicate to us that certain people within the oligarchy, that certain people within the quote-unquote powers that be have a depopulation agenda. My take on the powers that be is that they're just as crazy and confused as the people down here. That everybody has functions and rules and roles that they perform in society. You might be a contractor. I might be in the service industry. This guy might be a lawyer. This other guy might be a cop. This person's a ditch digger. This person's a moneyed millionaire, son of a oil tycoon, whatever. And everybody is doing their thing. And everybody wants to think that there's a solidity to society, a permanency to society, that it somehow works for a particular reason and to a particular form or function. And what I'm telling you is this, that I don't know if I necessarily agree with that at this point. So while I think that there's probably people that do have an agenda to try and aim us towards their inevitable psychological conclusion that it's all going to hit the ditch and we're all doomed, that'd be one thing. For the most part, what I think the real problem with lesser magic today is not that it's leading the powers that be towards their inevitable goal of collapse. It's that it's blinding the powers that be to the inevitable conclusion that what people are waking up to is the reality, and it's difficult to do it. So if we talk about the powers that be and leading us in one direction or another, I mean, Cliff High, is Cliff High an agent of change towards positivity, or is he a negative ghoul? Do you know what I mean? Predicting doom and gloom, for whenever. And I constantly tell people this is I don't know. That's why I don't say I know if it could happen tomorrow or the next day, because I know that people have been saying these things about this inevitable economic collapse since it's just like Jesus Christ coming back. People have been talking about when they wrote the book of Revelations, what people in today's society don't realize is that was a contemporary writing. They thought they were talking about their present time. Jesus Christ is coming back. Why is he coming back? Look around you. See how fucked up everything is? You see how this is the end times. This is the end times. You know, if you look at the Hindu spiritual worldview, there's the notion of these things called yugas, ages. That there's a golden age, and then there's the eventually it's going to come to Kali Yuga, which is everything is terrible in this. People have been saying that it's Kali Yuga since for 10,000 years. You know what I mean? Like they think that the end has been happening since day one. So it might just be that we're in a perpetual state of things coming into power, things falling back down, things coming to fruition, things falling back. And what I say is this: I go, look, I said this: if you're prepared for bad things and nothing bad happens, okay.
Right.
How bad were you off if you weren't obsessed with it, if it didn't occupy the entirety of your existence? But if you're unprepared, you get caught with your pants down.
Power, right? The knowledge is power. At least you be aware of, things to come and things around, right? It gives you the upper edge.
Hopefully, God willing.
At least you're not left in the dark.
Yeah.
Right?
And the thing about Cliff High that we have to mention is that Cliff High is one of these guys. He's absolutely fascinating, because if you tune into him for 45 minutes, you're going to say to yourself, "Gee, wow, this is a guy who's utilizing this complex information data analysis software to accurately predict changes and trends within the economic forecast." And having said that, you might say to yourself, Cliff High is a guy I really want to listen to. He's a guy I think I should pay attention to. But if you listen to Cliff High for an hour and a half, right, after he gets through with the 45 minutes explaining to you how the information, the web bots work, he will then start talking to you about structuring your water, right, to get the molecules moving in a certain direction. He'll start talking to you about this. He believes that there's an underground world civilization. You know that, right? Cliff High believes in Agartha. No. Cliff High believes in Agartha. But that's yeah, he does.
Oh shit! Thanks for that. That's
yeah.
There's a little gem of information for y'all. Thanks.
He believes in the breakaway civilization. He believes in the underground, the honeycomb earth. He believes in a lot of amazing spiritual new agey things that puts him out there. And I'm not saying that makes him wrong, but I'm saying that it's just one of those things that it's same thing with Greg Hunter. Greg Hunter may come off as a very sound, astute, rational economic mind. Greg Hunter is a born-again Christian. Part of his analysis of the economy, part of his analysis of the economic systems is tied and part of this millennial worldview that it's all got to come apart sometime because that's what it says in the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? So all these things, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and you got to listen to for a long time because it's not necessarily going to come through. Cliff High is not going to necessarily talk about Agartha, the underground civilization, or the breakaway civilization on Greg Hunter. He's going to keep it very, level-headed. But if you catch him on some other programs, he's as kooky as CW Chanter. You know what I mean? I'm as crazy as they get. I'm as crazy as they get.
Well, hey, I just wanted to thank you, CW, for coming this week. It was a real pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. It's really been. I had to take a break from YouTube for a while. This was a great way to come back. There's a great community you guys got going over here. A great little scene, and it was absolutely chill hanging with you guys and talking to you guys. And I'm very, very proud you guys have had some heavy hitters on your show, and I'm very proud to think of myself in some way, shape, or form associated with these luminaries like Joseph P. Farrell, the great Joseph P. Farrell, and Thomas Sheridan and the like. Really, I'm honored. I'm truly honored to have been here tonight with you guys.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Right on.
Great information. Hopefully you can come back again and share some more of your information with us.
That's sure it. My social calendar is. I'll be your perennial fill-in. Whatever I cancel.
You're on call, eh?
That's it. Whenever you can't get out for Lambermont Weber, feel free to give me a call.
Well, excellent. I would really appreciate if you could remember one of these days to put a word into Kara St. Louis. I would love to speak with her as well.
Listen, I got to tell you, and when I say if I definitely will, but you got to remember that I think Kara St. Louis's attitude about CW Chanters, I just don't get it. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, the conclusion that we led to is that what she thought was character assassination in my comment section, I thought was just freedom of speech. So it is what it is. But I'll definitely let her know she's around. I mean, listen, the great thing about Cara St. Louis is that if you let her, I'm telling you, if you let her know that you've got a venue, and you know that you let her know that venue could be of possible use in the dissemination of information that will free humanity from the oligarchical control structures, Cara St. Louis will show up.
Oh my! I wonder if she knows about my work.
she might, and if she doesn't, she'd love to hear about it. I'm sure.
Yeah,
she would.
because it sounds like we're pretty much on with the same goal.
Yeah, her goal is the deconstruction.
I wouldn't have known about Cara if I didn't know Amy, who knew you, who made me research you, who made me see your interview with her. So it's a beautiful community. It's beautiful the way it works. And so now we're going to put her on the list, and we'll be reaching out to her soon.
Believe you me, absolutely, you guys should have her. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking that we might start up a website. I'm starting to think about an idea of having a Conspiracy Not Here We Come website with, all of our shows and things like that, so people have one.
Okay, well, I mean, if we want them all in one place,
something I want to talk about with you guys, another time.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan.
Not diluted with my guitar playing or my crappy uploads that I film on my cell phone while I film my computer.
Or my,
a good place for everybody to come.
Yeah, I don't do video editing.
During the week, people can come in during the week and they can post things that they want us to talk about or things that they want to share with us as well, right? And that'll give us some great conversations when we do our shows. And any ideas on guests, things like that. So I think it's a good way to work together. So hopefully we can develop something like that down the road. Just wanted to thank everybody again in the chat. There's been a lot of people here, a lot of new people here as well. Thanks again, Juxtapose, Zach. Great music.
Omaha Ben was here.
Greatest potential. Great guy, seems like. Lots to say.
Blue Blood, we talked to him.
Omaha Ben, Jordan Rains, Icles, good to see you. Jackson for Doom.
Bert Trim. Hey, Bert.
Faulty.
Jaded Sofa. Don't forget Jaded
We
Sofa.
like giving shout outs to our peeps, man. It's
absolutely.
Are a valuable part of what we're doing here, and it's not because of the audience factor. It's because that it's an additional, 10 or 20 or 30 brains. You know what I mean? It's a collective effort. And that's
we had Blue Blood Guitar Jay in here tonight, which was great. He was on our show last night. If you guys want to hear a good conversation, we had a good one last night. It should be posted on either Aaron or I think
my early rant in the beginning. Sorry.
That's why I think so much of my stuff had to come offline. It'd be brilliant video. It'd be an hour and a half video. It'd be an hour and 50 minutes of brilliance, but then there's the 15 minutes of screaming and shouting and freaking out the world. It just seems to throw it away.
Thanks again to Lady Zaga for being here. Omaha Ben, of course, one of our regular folk. And,
all right, okay.
He's always there to pick up our slack. That guy's full of good stuff. He's always there.
My favorite.
I agree.
Omaha Ben. I know he used to come on my channel too. This guy gets around.
We have Brandon Young here. I've never seen before. Welcome, Brandon. I hope you enjoyed it.
Brandon Young knows everybody.
We have lots of good shows that are uploaded on Aaron and I's channel, and also Amy's regularly uploading them as well. We've had some really great interviews with Joseph Farrell and the likes. So, feel free to go back and watch them. If you have any other questions about what we've talked about before, then come in, and post your comments in here. Thanks again. Bert Trim showed up tonight. Quite a few new people. Jaded Soda.
Jaded Sofa. It's just classic.
Sofa. Sorry. Jaded Sofa. And I think I've gone through most of them. But thanks anyways, guys. Thanks to everybody.
CW, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic time I had here tonight.
If you could give us a quick... Amy, could you give us a quick update of what our upcoming guests are going to be in the next little while? Just
they're all canceled. It's all CW Chanter.
That's right. You booked us up now. Right?
That's it. I have on schedule for next week just a wild chat with whoever shows up. That eventually I'll get a list of who we're planning to have.
I got to get her the list. We got a bunch of people who's going to be in here. It's going to be a full house next week. It's our 33rd show. We're going to have a bunch of 33. We're just going to play around with that one. It's going to be a big round table.
And then I have for certain on March 31st, we have Michael Cremo.
Wow.
We're still waiting to hear back from
Chris Dunn.
Christopher Dunn.
He's having surgery.
If anybody out there knows somebody that they think has something to offer to our show or whatnot, get in touch with us. And, even if it's you yourself, I'm ready to put people on the show that really have something to say.
Absolutely. She booked CW. She'll book everybody.
That's right. That's right.
Please, everybody who's still here in the chat and watching, please thumbs up the video. We've got a constant fight against trolls on here.
Right,
We've got a house troll who wants to come in here and thumbs us down 8 times before the show even gets through the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you could give us a good thumbs up there, that'd be perfect. Keep our ratings at at least a stable pace.
Right.
And other than that, once again, thanks so much, CW, for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good one.
No problem.
Good one. We'll be in touch, buddy. It's been a pleasure.
Please do. Please do.
You ready, Ian?
Cue up the intro.
The outro.
Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yeah, don't forget to unmute it.
Yeah. Guys, well, thanks for not. It's been Conspiracy or Not. Here we come. Until next time. Peace.